Okay. Session is now called to order. Majority Leader. Okay. Let's recognize Representative Greg G. Gasataya via Zoom for the invocation.
Let us remember that we are in the presence of the Lord. Lord God, our Heavenly Father, we come into your presence, acknowledging that apart from you, we are nothing. We thank you for the opportunity and privilege that you have given us to be part of the 18th Congress, to be of service to the respective congressional districts and party list groups that we represent. That should result in the improvement of the lives of our fellow Filipinos and our nation. As we are in the midst of this COVID-19 pandemic that continues to endanger the lives of everyone, destroy the economy, and attack our mental health, we claim your promise in Proverbs 3:5-6 that says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths." Lord, please continue to give us the realization that we need to submit to you and to surrender everything to you for a clear direction as we face the hardships and uncertainties brought by this pandemic. We pray and ask for your help and guidance as we continue our legislative work, which should lead to the country's economic recovery. We continue to pray for physical and mental healing and protection for everyone. As a nation, we pray for strength, hope and mercy, and deliverance from all the insurmountable challenges that beset us, and that by your grace and mercy, we as a nation will be able to surpass this. This we pray in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Let's have the national anthem.
Bayang magiliw, perlas ng silanganan, alam ng puso, sa titik mo'y buhay. Lupang hinirang, buyak ka ng magiting, sa manlulupit, di ka pasisingil, sa dagat at bundok, sa simoy at sa langit mong baghaw, may bilang ang tula at awit sa paglayang minamahal. Ang kisap ng wataw at mo'y tagumpay na naglilingling, ang bituin at araw niya kailan pa may magdidilim. Lupa ng araw ng warangit pagsinta, buhay ay langit sa atin mo. Aming ligaya dapat may mga atin, magmamatay ng dahil sa'yo.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we call the roll of members.
Secretary General, please call the roll of members.
Roll call of members, honorable representatives, Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbizon, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Bilyones, Biron, Bolilia, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Kabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano Alan Peter, Cayetano Mariala Arni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizaldi, Ko Juanco, Colyantes, Crisologo, Kua, Quaresma, Cueva, Kulyamat, Dagoo, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Erigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudis Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Go Ed, Go Mark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gulyas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloshos, Javier, Jimenez, Ko Elisa, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lakson, Lakson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Makapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marinho, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Uwaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulia, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Siao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, C. Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikurat, Zarate Zubiri. Mr. Speaker, the roll call shows the 300 members responded to the call.
With 300 members responding to the call, the chair declares the presence of a quorum. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we approve the journal number 18, dated March 15 to 17, 2021. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Motion is carried. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we proceed with the reference of business, and for this purpose, direct the Secretary General to read the title of the bills and resolution for first reading, as well as communications and committee reports. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General, go ahead with the reference of business.
Reference of business bills on first reading. House Bill 9006 to further enhance the basic education system by providing for the inclusion of a subject on savings and investments in the secondary education curriculum. Representative O. Minal.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9010 declaring December 23 of every year a non-working holiday in Dagupan, Pangasinan in commemoration of the birth anniversary of the Dagupan-born national artist Victorio Edades, to be known as Victorio Edades Day. Representative De Venecia.
To the Committee on Local Government.
House Bill 9011 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Bayanga in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9012 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Besigan in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9013 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Dan Solihon in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9014 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Lumbia in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9015 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Mambuaya in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9016 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Pagalungan in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9017 establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Tumpagon in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
Establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay Pigsagan in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
Establishing and determining a community forest in Barangay San Simon in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Special Committee on Reforestation.
House Bill 9020 establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in Barangay Bayabas in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City. Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
To the Committee on Aquaculture and Fisheries Resources.
House Bill 9021, establishing and determining community forest barangay Taglimao in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Special Committee on Reforestation,
House Bill 9022, establishing and determining community forest in barangay Tagpangi in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Special Committee on Reforestation,
House Bill 9023, establishing and determining a community forest in barangay Tignapoloan in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Special Committee on Reforestation,
House Bill 9024, establishing and determining a community forest in barangay Tuburan in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Special Committee on Reforestation,
House Bill 9025, establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in barangay Bonbon in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Committee on Aquaculture and Fisheries Resources,
House Bill 9026, establishing a multi-species marine hatchery in barangay Bulua in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Committee on Aquaculture and Fisheries Resources,
House Bill 9027, establishing determined community forest in barangay Baikingon in the 1st District of Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez and Uy Rolando.
to the Special Committee on Reforestation,
House Bill 9028, providing for a just and equal share in the internal revenue allotment for barangays created by LGUs, Representative Banyas Nograles.
to the Committee on Local Government,
House Bill 9029, providing for mechanisms to set a ceiling on the price of different varieties of rice to ensure the affordability of rice and protect the consumers from rice cartels, Representative Banyas Nograles.
to the Committee on Agriculture and Food and the Committee on Trade and Industry,
House Bill 9031, converting the San Lazaro Elementary School in Barangay Bipingkahan, Sorsogon City, Sorsogon, into an integrated school to be known as San Lazaro Integrated National School, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9032, converting the road stretching from Barangay Ariman to Barangay Beriran, Gubat, Sorsogon into a national road, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill 9033, converting the road stretching from Barangay Kamkaman, Matnog to Barangay San Rafael, Bulusan, all in Sorsogon into a national road, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill 9034, converting the road stretching from Barangay Poblacion Sur to Barangay St. Lourdes, Barcelona, Sorsogon into a national road, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill 9035, converting the road stretching from Barangay Aquino to Barangay Kadandanan, Bulon, Sorsogon International Road, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill 9036, converting the road stretching from Sulungan, Matnog to Barangay Bigo, Santa Magdalena, all in Sorsogon International Road, Representative Escudero.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill number 9037, converting the road stretching from Barangay San Ramon, Bulan to Barangay Cadgaron, Matnog, all in Sorsogon International Road.
to the Committee on Public Works and Highways,
House Bill 9038, establishing an e-library in Barangay Indahag in Cagayan de Oro City, Representatives Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9039, establishing an e-library in Barangay Lapasan in Cagayan de Oro City.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9040, establishing an e-library in Barangay Macabalan, Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9041, establishing an e-library in Barangay Makasandig in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9042, establishing an e-library in Barangay Nazareth in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9043, establishing an e-library in Barangay Puerto, Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9044, establishing an e-library in Barangay Buntod in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
to the Committee on Basic Education and Culture,
House Bill 9045, establishing an e-library in Barangay Tablon in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9046, establishing an e-library in Barangay Balubal in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9047, establishing an e-library in Barangay Bugo in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9048, establishing an e-library in Barangay Kamaman-an in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9049, establishing an e-library in Barangay Consolacion in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9050, establishing an e-library in Barangay Cugman in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9051, establishing an e-library in Barangay FS Catanico in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9052, establishing an e-library in Barangay Gusa in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9053, establishing an e-library lab in Barangay Agusan in Cagayan de Oro City, Representative Rodriguez.
To the Committee on Basic Education and Culture.
House Bill 9054, authorizing the DBM to earmark the revenue collected from the tariff on all meat and poultry products to the Livestock Development Program of the DA, Representative Heron.
To the Committee on Agriculture and Food and the Committee on Appropriations.
House Bill 9055, establishing Mount Busa Makima in Maasim, Kiamba, and Maitum, Sarangani as a protected area under the category of protected landscape pursuant to the expanded National Integrated Protected Area System Act of 2018, Representative Pacquiao Rogelio.
To the Committee on Natural Resources.
Resolutions, House Resolution 1657, strongly urging the Committee on Human Rights to condemn and investigate the PNP's profiling of lawyers defending red-tagged individuals, Representative Zarate, Lagman, Belmonte, Colyamat, Gaite, Brosas, Castro Franz, and Elago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1658, calling for an investigation, disaster preparedness monitoring, evaluation, and strategic response plan and actions by concerned national government agencies on the possible occurrence or eruption of Mount Pinatubo in Central Luzon and nearby provinces. Representative Gonzales Aurelio.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1659, congratulating and commending the recipients of the Outstanding Young Men of the Philippines 2020 award given by the Junior Chamber International Philippines Incorporated, the TOYM Foundation Incorporated, and Jerry Rojas Foundation Incorporated. Representative Legarda.
To the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
Messages from the Senate. Messages dated March 15, 2021, informing the House that the Senate on even date passed House Bill numbers 8631 and 8632 with amendments.
To the Committee on Justice.
Communications, later dated 10 February 2021, of PLLO Head and Presidential Advisor on Legislative Affairs, submitting to the House certain financial accomplishment reports.
To the Committee on Appropriations.
Letter dated February 15, 2021, of the Calapan Waterworks Corporation President, submitting to the House a copy of their operation report for 2020.
To the Committee on Government Enterprises and Privatization.
Letter dated 23 February 2021 of the DOTR ASEC for Communications and Commuter Affairs, transmitting to the House a copy of their 2020 annual report.
To the Committee on Transportation.
Bureau of Customs Annual Report 2020.
To the Committee on Ways and Means.
Report number 877 of the Committee on Youth and Sports Development on House Resolution 1660. Report numbers 878 to 880 of the Committees on Transportation Appropriations on House Bill number 7070, 9056, and 8034. Report number 881 of the Committee on Information and Communications Technology on House Bill number 9057.
To the Committee on Rules.
Additional reference of business, resolutions, House Resolution 1661, urging the Committees on Civil Service and Professional Regulations and Human Rights to investigate the alleged violation of union rights, red tagging, and profiling of members of Confederation for the Unity, Recognition, Advancement of Government Employees and Alliance of Concerned Teachers through the DILG issued memorandum on the membership of employees in the said organizations. Representatives Gaite, Zarate, Colyamat, Castro Franz, Brosas, and Elago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1662, urging the Committee on Labor and Employment to investigate the reported delay on the compensation of the media and production workers and alleged violations on labor standards under the DepEd TV project. Representatives Gaite, Zarate, Colyamat, Castro France, Brosas, and Ilago.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1663, directing the appropriate committee to inquire on the status of housing resettlement of families displaced by the armed conflict in Marawi City in 2017. Representative Benitez.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1664, urging the committees on government enterprises, good government, and any appropriate committee to review the ongoing negotiations between the DRJ and Maynilad Incorporated and Manila Water Incorporated regarding the concession agreements.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1665, urging the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts and other appropriate committees to inquire on the prospects of the UNESCO Creative Cities Network contributing to the country's post-pandemic road to economic recovery. Representative De Venecia.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1666, directing the Committee on Good Government and Public Accountability to inquire on the closure of Insular Prison Road in the New Bilibid Prison Reservation by the Bucor. Representative Biazon.
To the Committee on Rules.
House Resolution 1667, urging the DOH and the National Task Force Against COVID-19 to expedite the forging of tripartite agreements with COVID-19 vaccine manufacturers and private entities willing to purchase COVID-19 vaccines for their employees. Representative Castello.
To the Committee on Health.
House Resolution 1668, urging the Special Committee on Creative Industry and Performing Arts and other appropriate committees to inquire on the implementation of the Architecture Act of 2004 or the Philippine Interior Design Act of 2012 and other laws in relation to design professionals. Representatives De Venecia and Co. Angelica.
To the Committee on Rules. Majority Leader. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, in accordance with Rule 17, Section 125 of the Rules of House of Representatives, we seek the indulgence of our colleagues who wish to perform privileged speeches this Monday. We will be moving them to after we tackle business for the day so that we can finish legislation, have the approval on second reading, and hopefully by Thursday, have them approved on third reading. With that, Mr. Speaker, I move for the consideration of House Bill 8992 as found in Committee Report number 862. Could the Secretary General be directed to read the title of said measure?
Secretary General so directed.
House Bill Number 8992, an act promoting the use of digital payments for financial transactions of the government and all merchants.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Joet Garcia, the sponsor of House Bill number 8992, of the Second District of Bataan.
Honorable Garcia is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. To the honorable members of the House, it is my pleasure to present in this august body, in behalf of the Committee on Banks and Financial Intermediaries, Chairperson Juni Kua, the Committee Report number 8862 or House Bill number 8992, an act promoting the use of digital payments for financial transactions of the government and all merchants. Let me just highlight that the main objective of the bill is to hasten the adoption of digital payment as one of the mediums of exchange in financial transactions across the country. This will facilitate the attainment of the desired financial inclusion to support broad-based economic development, which can contribute to inclusive growth in the country. The unfortunate health crisis brought about by COVID-19 pandemic even heightened the need for promoting alternative modes of doing economic transactions. With no known cure of the disease at the moment and still increasing number of cases, we are compelled to adopt measures that limit movements and face-to-face interactions and observe health protocols never before imposed in recent times to prevent its spread. By accelerating the use of digital payments, we actually provide a medium where social distancing is better observed and face-to-face interaction is minimized, if not eliminated, thereby enabling a wider population to have safer and more efficient alternative to the traditional cash-based transactions. In the view of foregoing, the immediate passage of this very timely and important measure is earnestly sought. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize the Honorable Franz Castro of Party List ACT Teachers for her interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Castro is now recognized.
Maraming salamat, Ginoong Speaker. Sa magandang hapon po sa inyo at sa ating mga colleagues at sa ating mga mamamayan na nakikinig sa ating pagdinig sa araw na ito. So, Mr. Speaker, kahihintulutan po ba ng ating gagalang-galang na sponsor na magtanong o mag-inquire kaugnay nitong House Bill 8992, Mr. Speaker?
It would be an honor, Mr. Speaker.
Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Sponsor. So, first of all, Mr. Speaker, I welcome these measures. This is very timely, especially in pandemic time. Tama po yung ating sponsor, no, para malimit po yung movement during pandemic time, makasave ng time, siguro ng pera ang ating mga mamayan, kasi kung meron na po tayong mga digital or may mga apps na pwedeng gamitin para makapagbayad ng ng mga bayarin sa ating gobyerno, no, sa mga respective agencies ng gobyerno. Ito po ay very very timely and very welcome. So ilan lang pong paglilinaw, no, Mr. Speaker, Ginoong Sponsor, pag ito po ba ay naipatupad at na-mandate na natin yung mga lahat ng agencies, ibig sabihin po ba ay hindi na pwede ng cash? Wala na pong magbabayad sa ating mga agency ng cash later on?
Maraming salamat po sa katanungan. Actually, ang layunin ng ating panukala ay ma-enable o mabigyan ng kakayahan ang pamahalaan, pati ang ating ang pribadong sektor, ang ating mga merchants, para tumanggap ng mga digital payments. Ibig sabihin po nito, ito po ay dagdag sa kakayahan nila na tumanggap bukod sa cash payments. Kaya po, sa madaling sagot, tatanggapin pa rin po yung cash payments. Ito po ay isa lang paraan para tumanggap ng digital payments.
Yes. Salamat po, Ginoong Speaker, kagalang-galang na sponsor, no? So nalinawan po ako sa sagot, kasi marami tayong mga kababayan, halimbawa kung walang access. Kasi this is technology, internet, na pangangailangan. So kung wala pong access yung ating mga pangkaraniwang mamamayan, makakapagbayad din po sila ng cash. Pero this is just an alternative. Okay? Sa definition, Mr. Speaker, yung sinasabi natin ditong payment service provider. Okay? Medyo familiar naman po ako doon sa iba't ibang mga mga apps kung saan pwedeng magbayad. Nagagamit po ito doon sa halimbawa pagbabayad po sa bangko or magsisend ka ng money, 'di ba maraming ganyan, tapos yung iba pa pong mga apps. So ito po ba yung tinutukoy natin dito na payment service provider, Mr. Speaker?
Tama po yun, Mr. Speaker. Yung sa definition natin na payment service provider, if I can read also, refers to the entity that provides payment services to end users. Maari pong consumer, merchants, billers, including government institutions. So covered po natin dito, Mr. Speaker, ang lahat ng mga pamamaraan sa pamagitan ng digital payments.
Okay. So, halimbawa po sa pagbabayad po ng mga utilities, di po ba, yung power, yung water utilities, yung telephone, yung internet access. So, gumagamit po ng digital payment. So, ito rin po ba yung sinasabi nating payment service provider? Yung kanilang mga ginagamit, yung mga private corporations.
Tama po yun, Mr. Speaker. When we say payment service provider, sila po yung kasalukuyang nagagamit ng ating mga kababayan para po magbayad ng kanilang mga bayarin online, whether sa website o kaya man sa mga applications sa kanilang telepono, tablet. Ito po yung mga service providers para po makapagbayad tayo online.
Okay. Sa
So,
mga
kasama po
government...
dito, Mr. Speaker, dagdag ko na lang, kasama po dito, of course, yung tinatawag ho nating e-money. Diba? Sila GCash, sila PayMaya, StarPay. Kasama rin po dito la credit card. Kasama po dito debit card. And the others, Mr. Speaker.
Okay. Thank you po, Mr. Speaker, ginoong sponsor, no? So, halimbawa po, pag nagbayad ka, halimbawa, nung NBI, payment mo sa NBI, papupuntahin ka sa bayad center para magbayad doon, at bibigay mo na lang yung resibo nila. So, ganun po, no? Pag nagbayad ka po ng PhilHealth, pwede kang mag-access nung bayad center through your phone, pwede na yon. Yun po yung ibig sabihin natin, noong payment service provider or digital payment. So, maganda po ito, no, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor. So, isa pa pong tanong ko, no, kung ano po bang time frame? Meron po bang time frame tayo sa lahat ng mga government agencies and government entities na makapag-comply? O halimbawa nito, meron po bang time frame? Mr. Speaker.
Baka naputol yung...
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah. Mr. Speaker, medyo
Yeah.
nawawala po yung signal.
Oo. Ang tinatanong ko po, Mr. Speaker, ay ano po yung time frame na kung saan yung ating mga government agencies ay makapag-comply dito sa ating batas, proposed law?
Sa panukala po natin, Mr. Speaker, wala po tayong nilagay na time frame, pero ang expectation ho natin, ang intention natin, ay kapag ito ay na-enact at nagawa na po yung IRR, ay sa lalong madaling panahon, ay ma-implement na po ito ng ating mga NGAs at ang ating mga local government units. Kaya rin po natin binigyan sila ng paraan, no, para makapaghanda at magkaroon ng kanilang implementasyon, kasi alam naman po natin at we want to be sensitive to the different situations in the country pagdating nga po sa internet access, pagdating din sa availability, no, ng mga gadgets o devices para sa ating mga kababayan. No, so although we did not put a time frame, but siguro po, Mr. Speaker, isa yan sa pwedeng mai-specify pag nagawa ho yung IRR, para depende ho sa NGA at saka depende rin ho sa mga local government units sa kanila pong mga sitwasyon. Pero gusto ko po ipaalam, Mr. Speaker, na karamihan ng ating pong mga NGAs sa ngayon, katulad po nung lalo na yung mga madalas pong binabayaran ng ating mga kababayan, Pag-ibig, SSS, NBI, LTO, BIR, lahat po yan ay enabled na. Meron na silang pamamaraan para tumanggap ng mga digital payments. And of course, many of our local government units also have provided this digital payment facility.
Okay. Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor. So sinasabi po rin po natin dito, no, yung accreditation nitoong mga digital payment system na ito. So, pakipaliwanag nga po, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, yung proseso ng accreditation nitong mga digital payments. Or kasama na rito yung apps. Okay.
Actually, ang mga payment service providers natin, napapasailalim po sila sa Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. No? So mula sa lisensya nila para po pumasok sa ganitong klaseng negosyo, hanggang sa implementasyon, no, yung kanilang mga application, yung kanilang mga processing, hanggang sa auditing. Kung meron pong mga maling transaction, kung meron pong nagreklamo, kung meron mga unusual transactions, lahat po yan ay under the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So very well monitored po ng BSP ang lahat ng ating mga payment service providers. Sila ho nagbibigay ng pahintulot o ng permit. Sila rin po nag-regulate sa mga payment service providers po natin.
Okay, so malaki, Mr. Speaker, salamat po ginong sponsor. So malaki po pala ang magiging role, no, ng BSP dito sa gagamitin nating na sistema. Tama po ba? In terms of okay.
Tama po yun
in terms of regulation.
Tama po yun, Mr. Speaker. In terms of regulations, ngayon, sila po yung pinaka-ahensya assigned to regulate all payment service providers, especially ito po mga digital payments.
Okay. Thank you po. Ang last question ko na lang po, Mr. Speaker, kasi maganda naman po ito, no? Welcome naman po ito para dun sa ease of doing doing transactions with our government. Sana matiyak lang na available yung internet, 'di ba? Yung kailangan nating mga facilities para ma-improve natin yung ways of payments natin. So, ma-ensure po ba, Mr. Speaker, ng ating buting sponsor, na later on, hindi magkakaroon ng additional burden or additional payment ang ating mga consumers or ang ating mga kababayan? Kasi, Mr. Speaker, nakakadala. Alam mo ba, itong mga nangyayari sa bangko, mga ATM na magbabayad ka or magta-transact ka, later on po ba, tingin niyo po ba walang added expenses ang taong bayan aside from yung talagang payments lang nila? Kasi baka merong ganun, di ba? Yung mga payment provider natin, manghingi ng service fee na 2 pesos or tataas yan hanggang kung magkano ang gusto nila. Katulad niyan, doon sa ibang mga ginagamit na mga apps, may mga bayad din doon. So, paano po natin ma-ensure yung ating mga kababayan na walang added payment sa kanila ito? Na maipo-provide po ba ito ng batas?
Yes, thank you. Maraming salamat po ulit dun sa napakahalagang katanungan, Mr. Speaker. Totoo po na bahagi naman ng mga service providers na ito, syempre kailangan din po nila magkaroon ng income para maging sustainable ang kanilang mga negosyo. Meron po sila kanilang mga fees na charge mula sa mga convenience fee or transaction fee hanggang sa mga merchant discount rates, pareho nung mga ginagawa ko kunyari sa credit card. Pero ang kagandahan po, Mr. Speaker, dahil lumalawak at dumadami na yung iba't ibang mga serbisyo na nai-offer. So ngayon, nandyan yung mga e-money companies, nandyan yung mga bangko. Sa ngayon Mr. Speaker, ang EMIs natin, ito pong mga e-money companies, umaabot na sa 30. So 30 na yung mga providers ng e-money. So ang ibig sabihin nito, very healthy yung competition. Kaya ginagawa nila yung lahat para number one, maging accessible sa ating mga consumers. Ito pong kanilang mga apps at saka mga pamamaraan para magamit ito, makatulong sa kanilang mga transaction. Pangalawa, naglalabanan din po sila, Mr. Speaker, sa pababaan ng rate or minsan nga, karaniwan, lalo na sa mas mahihirap po nating mga kababayan, ay libre. Ibinibigay itong mga iba't ibang pamamaraan ng pag-transact. Example na lang, Mr. Speaker, ang ang paggamit kunyari ng isang, hindi ko na lang babanggitin kung sino pong provider, pero yung paggamit ng app, kung dati-rate ay nagcha-charge kasi gumagamit yan ng data. No? So kahit pa paano meron pong nagagamit na data. Ngayon po ang ibang mga provider ay winave na yung kanilang mga data fee para tuwing ginagamit mo yung app para magbayad ka o kaya magpadala ka ng pera kung kanino, ay wala ho silang fees na babayaran pagdating ho sa data usage. Then bukod ho dyan, sa mga kababayan natin, kunyari example na lamang sa mga TODA, no, ating pong mga tricycle driver, yung ating pong mga tindera sa palengke, wala hong china-charge na merchant discount rate sa mga maliliit po nating negosyante. Kasi alam mo natin, maliitan lang po yung transaction na nangyayari, and kung magpapatong pa ho tayo ng additional fees, hindi ho natin mapropromote ito pong digital payment at lalo hong hindi dadami ang gumagamit. No? So ganun po nangyayari, Mr. Speaker, Congresswoman Castro, ganun po ang nangyayari ngayon na bumababa ho yung mga rates, at the same time umaabot pa nga sa libre, dahil nga ang objective din ng lahat ay maging bahagi na ng ating pamumuhay itong digital payments, maging safe, maging mas mabilis, at magkaroon po ng dagdag na oportunidad para sa lahat, lalo na sa ating mga negosyante. Mas lumawak pa yung kakayahan nila makipag-transact kahit kanino, kasi nga hindi na kailangan face-to-face, online, through sa mga apps lang nagkakaroon na ng mga transaction. So dun ho tayo papunta. Yun ho yung main objective. Kaya tingin ko, kung sa katanungan ay in the future ba, lalo ba baka maging burden ito sa ating mga kababayan. Tingin ko habang tumatagal po yung panahon, lalong dumadami yung mga providers, lalong dumadami yung gumagamit, nagkakaroon po ng economies of scale, kaya lalo pong bababa, kung hindi nga tuluyan na malibre, lalo na sa mga kababayan po natin na hindi na mas nangangailangan po. So hindi po ako naniniwala magiging burden po to, Mr. Speaker, Congresswoman Castro.
Yes, Mr. Speaker, no. Siguro magkaroon din siguro tayo ng provision dito o regulation para magkaroon din tayo ng check or monitoring dito sa mga apps or mga provider na i-access po or gagamitin ng ating mga NGAs. At alam ko isa rin itong pamamaraan para ma-curve din siguro yung corruption. Tama po ba ako? Kasi syempre pag cash yan, mga di ba? So tingin niyo po ba, last na. Tingin niyo po ba paano ba ma-curve ang corruption dito sa pamamaraan na ito?
Actually, Mr. Speaker, sa pag-aaral ko, ito pong digital payments ay isa sa itinulak ng bansang India to help pagdating sa corruption, and in fact, even increase revenues. Dahil sa digital payments, yun nga, wala kang maitatago. Lahat po yan ay dumadaan sa mga sistema, sa mga computer. So, dahil po doon, mas na-track po nila ang lahat ng mga tax payments, kung tama po yung dinedeclare. Tapos, syempre, kapag transparent, kapag malinaw kung ano yung numero, magkano ba yung nabenta, magkano yung kinakailangan bayaran tax. Kung malinaw na malinaw po yan, wala na rin paraan para magkaroon po ng mga hindi ka nais-nais na mga transaction. So, naniniwala ko ako, makakatulong po ito. Panghuli na lang, nabanggit niyo kanina yung kung ano yung paraan para hindi maging burden ito sa ating mga kababayan. Malaking role ho, tama ho kayo, malaking role, Mr. Speaker, yung ang ginagampanan ng BSP. Kasi yung isa ho sa digital payment system na ginagamit po ng marami ho sa atin, marami na ating mga kababayan, ay yung, kung narinig na ho natin, yung InstaPay at saka PesoNet. Di ba yan ho yung ginagamit ngayon ng mga bank-to-bank transfer. Yan po ay, kung di ako nagkakamali, pagmamayari ng Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. So, sila po yung gumawa ng sistema at pinapagamit po nila sa mga bangko. So dahil ho sa COVID pandemic, dahil po meron ho tayong problema ngayon, simula ho last year hanggang ngayon ay libre ho, walang fees na china-charge or winave ang fees ng PesoNet at saka ng InstaPay. So in fact, ang sinasuggest ko po dito, Mr. Speaker, is bukod sa mga payment service providers natin malaki ang role ng BSP para lalo pang mapababa ang mga iba't ibang fees na maaring bayaran ng ating mga kababayan in the future. Lalo na sila po ang may hawak ngayon ng InstaPay at saka ng PesoNet na ginagamit po sa napakaraming mga interbank transaction. Kasama na rin po mga transaction kasama itong mga digital payments or e-money. So may paraan ho, tama ho kayo, may paraan tayo para talagang ma-assure na hindi ho mahihirapan yung ating mga kababayan.
So, for that assurance, Mr. Speaker, ginong sponsor, so yun doon na lang po yung aking mga interpellations at salamat po sa pagpapaliwanag at pagbibigay ng linaw doon sa ilang mga katanungan. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Congresswoman Franz.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to interpellate the sponsor, I move that we close the period of sponsorship and debate. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Now we close the period of interpellation and debate.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. We open the period of amendments.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. We open the period of committee amendments.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we proceed to individual amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Let's now proceed to period of individual amendments.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Honorable Stella Kimbo of Marikina for her individual amendment. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Representative Kimbo is now recognized.
Mr. Speaker,
Go ahead. Please proceed.
Mr. Speaker, I'd like to propose amendments to House Bill 7425. On page 3, lines 23 to 25, insert the phrase "or consumes" after the word "resides" and delete the phrase "in the Philippines" and "who acquires" after the same term "resides." Said paragraph shall now read as follows. For this purpose, the term buyer refers to any person who resides or consumes taxable digital services in the Philippines from a digital service provider, either for personal consumption or for trade or business purposes.
What does the sponsor say?
We accept this, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker,
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we approve the amendments proposed and accepted by the sponsor.
Is there any
Mr. Speaker,
objection?
for my second,
Hearing none, motion is approved. Yeah, Honorable Kimbo is now recognized.
Mr. Speaker, on page 8, line 7, amend section 109H of the National Internal Revenue Code by deleting XXX after H and by inserting the following subsection: educational services, including online courses and webinars rendered by private educational institutions duly accredited by the Department of Education, DepEd, the Commission on Higher Education, CHED, the Technical Education and Skills Development Authority, TESDA, and those rendered by government educational institutions.
What does the sponsor say?
Mr. Speaker, may I move for a 1-minute suspension?
Session suspended.
Hello, boss. Boss Joy. Hello. Hello.
Let us resume session. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, Honorable Joyette Garcia has the floor.
Honorable Garcia is now recognized.
Yeah, Mr. Speaker, I believe the proposed amendments are for a different bill, but we may want to hear from Congresswoman Stella the withdrawal of the proposed individual amendments. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, I apologize. There has been some miscommunication. I was proposing amendments for House Bill 7425, which is the digital tax, the proposed digital tax. So I respectfully withdraw the amendments proposed earlier, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I also move to withdraw the motion to approve and to approve the proposed amendments. Mr.
Any-
Speaker.
Any objection? Hearing none, the motion is carried. Majority
Mr. Speaker, there being no other individual amendments, I move that we close the period of amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Period of individual amendments is now closed.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval on second reading House Bill number 8992. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion for the approval on second reading of House Bill 8992. Those who are in favor, please say aye. Those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8992 is now approved on second reading.
I move to suspend session for a few seconds.
Session suspended. Let us resume session.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on second reading House Bill number 8999 under Committee Report number 866, and that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the bill. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General, please read the title.
House Bill number 8999, an act instituting the Medical Reserve Corps and appropriating funds therefore.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Angelina Helen Tan, the chairperson of the Committee on Health, to sponsor House Bill number 8999. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Angelina Tan is now recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker. I would like to present Committee Report number 866 on House Bill number 8999 entitled An Act Instituting the Medical Reserve Corps and Appropriating Funds Therefore. Just to cite the objective of this bill, primarily is to organize a group of trained and equipped medical and health-related personnel for rapid mobilization during national or local public health emergencies which require manpower support to reinforce and strengthen the existing capabilities of the national agencies and local government units. Some of the key provisions of this bill are establishes a medical reserve corps under the Department of Health composed of persons who are licensed physicians, medical students who have completed their 4 years of medical course, graduates of medicine, registered nurses, and licensed allied health professionals who may be called upon to assist the national government, its agencies and instrumentalities, and local government units in the discharge of their functions in addressing the medical needs of the public. It also mandates the DOH to regularly publish an annual report of the accomplishments, status of the operations, number and demographic distribution of the Medical Reserve Corps, assessment of the readiness for mobilization, and details of each mobilization for the year concerned, promulgate the specific mechanisms by which the deployment is efficiently implemented, including the organization of the Corps to be deployed, their territorial assignments, how deployment orders are communicated to each member of the Corps, to which mobilization centers they will report to, and also grant the President of the Philippines the power to mobilize the Medical Reserve Corps nationwide in case of the declaration of state of war, state of lawless violence, and state of calamity, and enlist the armed forces of the Philippines to provide expertise in the organization of the MRC for efficient and effective and swift deployment, provide training to the recruits in disaster and emergency response, and complement the MRC logistics and manpower for large-scale operations in times of disasters and other public health emergencies, and establishes mobilization centers in every province, city as needed based on the number and geographic distribution of the Corps. That's all, Mr. Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that Honorable Carlos Zarate of Bayan Muna Party List be recognized for his interpellation. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable Zarate is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Will the good sponsor entertain a few clarificatory questions to the consideration?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, I will gladly accept the interpellation of Honorable Zarate.
Maraming salamat po. Magandang hapon po sa ating sponsor. Gaya nga ng nabanggit ng ating kagalang-galang na sponsor, Mr. Speaker, ang tinutungtungan ng panukalang batas na ito na creation of Medical Reserve Corps ay ang sinasabing lalong-lalo na sa panahon ng pandemya, no? At mga emergencies na especially na nararanasan natin ngayon. At gustong dalhin dito sa Medical Reserve Corps na ito, gaya ng nabanggit kanina, yung mga doktor, licensed physicians, no? Yung mga medical students, nurses, and licensed allied professionals. Kahit na noong nasa level committee pa naman ito, ay na-raise ko na rin ang usapin na ito, Mr. Chair, no? At Mr. Speaker, Madam Sponsor. Ang akin lang talagang nakita kaagad dito, especially dediretso na po ako doon sa usapin ng Section 4. Na sinasabi dito na ang proposed Medical Reserve Corps shall be created under the Health Emergency Management Bureau, but its organization structure and manning shall be set up with a paramilitary structure. Ano po ba ang ibig sabihin nito, kagalang-galang na sponsor, Mr. Speaker, nung sinasabi natin na ang kanyang structure ay paramilitary?
Thank you so much for your question, Honorable Zarate. Mr. Speaker, ang ibig sabihin lang po nito ay kinukuha natin yung current setup, no, and expertise ng ating AFP pagdating sa pagresponde doon sa public health emergencies and disasters.
So, gaya lang nabanggit ninyo, expertise on disaster and emergencies. Sa ibang ahensya po ba ay walang ganitong expertise or experience para po mapaghalawan ng pag-aaral o maging modelo ng itatayo na Medical Reserve Corps? Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Actually, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Zarate, meron din naman po, no, katulad ng ating NDRRMO, no. Subalit nakita naman natin na sa tuwing may darating na public health emergencies or disasters, no, ay palagi ang nasa forefront natin ay ang ating militar, no, at kinikilala natin yung kanilang kakayanan, no, skills and expertise pagdating sa pagtugon dito. And just want to cite on the committee report, nakalagay naman doon that on line 5 that the DOH shall develop an effective and efficient MRC organization and structure that is responsive to national and local disasters and other public health emergencies under such rules and regulations as the Secretary of Health as may prescribe. Ito yung na-erase po ng ating kagalang-galang na Zarate during the committee hearing, no? His concern on the paramilitary setup or structure na binabanggit niya kanina.
Salamat, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. No? Dahil po, as you know, nire-raise natin yung concern na yan dahil po sa mga konteksto, no? Ng ating bansa ngayon, no? That when the mere mention of paramilitary, it evokes experiences, especially in the rural areas, of widespread human rights violations, no, by paramilitary forces. And if that will become the model of the structure that will be set up, no, so yun po kaagad ang pumapasok sa isipan ng ating mga kababayan, no? How come that this is supposed to be Reserve Corps, Medical Reserve Corps, na ang kanyang layunin ay supposedly magserbisyo sa ating mamamayan, ay ganoon ang kanyang nagiging modelo, no? Yung paramilitary model. Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Now, dito din po sa panukalang batas na ito, no? Sinasabi rito na the deployment of the Medical Reserve Corps is not only limited during times of calamity, national emergency, a health emergency, but it may include the deployment of the members of the Medical Corps during situation of war and lawless violence. Tama po ba yun, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
And since this is a core, no, that will be called upon by the President later on, ang ibig po bang sabihin dito, if there is a state of war or there is a lawless violence, ang mga miyembro ng Medical Corps na ito will be mandated and forced to be deployed in areas where there is war or there is lawless violence, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Tama po yun, Mr. Speaker, pero gusto lang po nating linawin na ang pagtugon po ng ating pooled of trained health personnel na Medical Reserve Corps ay patungkol lamang doon sa pagtugon sa pangangailangan ng pangkalusugan. So tama po yun, nakasaad po sa Section 8 on the Deployment Order that the President of the Philippines, upon recommendation of the DOH, may order nationwide mobilization of Medical Reserve Corps to complement the AFP Medical Corps in case of declaration of state of war, state of lawless violence, and state of calamity. So ang pangunahin pong tatawagin ay yung existing natin na AFP Medical Corps at ang kung kinakailangan pa po ng augmentation o tulong ay doon po tatawagin yung ating MRC. Mr. Speaker.
Salamat, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Again, dugtong ko doon sa tanong ko, no? When the President mobilize the MRC, so ito pong miyembro ng Reserve Corps, papadala sila sa war zone. My question, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, pwede po bang mag-refuse ang isang member ng Medical Corps being deployed to a war zone or to an area where there is a lawless violence, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Pwede naman, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Zarate, subalit nakasaad po doon na should a health workers enlisted in the MRC refuse to be deployed, ay meron po lamang tayo doong kaukulang penalty na ibinibigay na kailangan niyang bayadan, no? Yung expenses incurred during the training, no? So yun po ang ating inilagay na penalty dito sa panukala na ito.
But as I understand it, thank you for that answer, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. But the way I understand it, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, the membership in the Medical Corps is in fact on a voluntary basis. Tama po ba yun, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Come again,
Ang pagiging membro po ng MRC or Medical Reserve Corps ay voluntaryo po. Tama po ba yun, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker, Honorable Zarate. Ito po ay voluntaryo na pagpapalista.
Salamat po. Dahil ito ay voluntaryo, pwede hong sa mga panapanahon ang miyembro ng Medical Corps talaga ay mag-refuse, no? For probably valid reasons. Dahil gusto niyang wag mapadeploy in a war zone or in an area where there is a lawless violence or kahit na sa area na tinamaan ng kalamidad. Hindi po ba posible yung ganon, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker? At bakit kailangang i-penalize siya sa pamamagitan ng pagbabayad ng cost of training, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Sapagkat as I mentioned earlier, no, yung objective po ng ating panukala na ito na sana ay tutugon base doon din sa experience natin with this pandemic, no, na mag-augment siya doon sa pool of healthcare workers that we have right now. ay bagaman voluntaryo, Mr. Speaker, ay gusto rin natin bigyan naman ng teeth, no? O sana mas maging matibay, no, ang pagpapatupad nitong panukala na ito sakaling maging isang batas. So, actually mababaw po yung penalty na inilagay natin, yung reimbursement ng expenses na gagastusin sa kanilang training. Initially, medyo mabigat yung mga proposals ng ibang authors, but the committee agreed on just imposing this penalty. I think ito yung pagbibigay lang natin ng tibay na sana no ay hindi ma-defeat yung purpose natin on creating this MRC.
Salamat, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Sa kasalukuyang setup po ng Department of Health, we already have a Health Emergency Bureau. And in fact, one of the general function of such bureau is to act as the DOH coordinating unit and operations center for all health emergencies and disasters, as well as incidents with the potential of becoming an emergency, and to coordinate the mobilization and sharing of resources. Under that same setup, it also provides the communication linkages among DOH Central Office and other concerned agencies, including the hospitals and the regions during emergencies, disasters. Now, one of its division is the Response, Recovery, and Rehabilitation Center that mobilizes resources of technical experts, health response teams, and tangible logistics needed locally and internationally. Also, it develops and capacitates human resources of the regional offices, its operational centers, and local government units in responding to emergencies and disasters, among others. Now, in line with this, and also under Republic Act 2382, it even empowers the Secretary of Health to authorize medical students to render services in times of epidemics or national emergencies. So such a power is already present and lodged with the Secretary of Health, even without yet the creation of this Medical Reserve Corps. And additionally, as it is now, even under the structure of the Armed Forces of the Philippines, they already have its own medical corps. That's why it begs the question, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, if there are already existing mechanism, it begs the question, why is there a need for this medical reserve corps during the state of war or even during state of lawlessness or even in times of calamity? So I'll go now to my specific question, by laying that premise, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. What is really the difference of this Medical Reserve Corps with the current setup of the Department of Health when there is already such a structure, itong Health Emergency Bureau under the DOH currently, no? Ano ba talaga ang pagkakaiba nila that would warrant still the creation of this structure na pattern after the military or paramilitary, how you may call it, no? But again, that function is already present under the current DOH setup. Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Actually, ito pong MRC, you will recruit, no? And included po yung mga nasa private sectors natin. Ngayon po doon sa Health Emergency Management Bureau, kung napansin po natin, binasa niyo po natin, actually mandated na yung Secretary of Health natin to call on nurses or other healthcare workers in times of public health emergencies. But napansin po natin, ito ay hindi nabigyan ng o hindi nagamit, no, ng Secretary of Health upang makapag-create ng pool of healthcare workers, no? Kung kaya minabuti po natin na mag-propose ng specific na panukala na tatalakay mismo dito sa Medical Reserve Corps. I think yung pagbibigay natin ng direction through this bill, no, on how to enlist ano ang kinakailangang gawin, at siya ay regularly magkakaroon ng trainings ay naiiba doon sa existing na struktura na meron sila ngayon, no? Dahil nga first time na dumating tayo doon sa pandemic, ay isa ito doon sa natutunan natin, which me as also an author of this bill believes na kailangan natin na ihanda yung training, no? Hindi at the times of need lamang saka natin sila tatawagin. So ang pagkakaiba is that magkakaroon ng recruitment, enlistment, nandyan ang mga pangalan nila, and magkakaroon ng continuous na training so that in times of public health emergencies or disaster, ay ready ang nandoon sa MRC to respond.
Thank you, good sponsor, Mr. Speaker. So, ang lumalabas pala rito, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, we need to create a medical reserve corps para sa usapin ng pag-train, no, ng ating mga healthcare workers or professionals, no, that can be mobilized during times of emergencies. Tama po ba yung pagkakuha ko, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Tama po, Mr. Speaker.
If that is the case, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, the current setup of the Department of Health, no, with its Health Emergency Management Bureau, can already be, can suffice, no, at kailangan lang na siguro na i-capacitate yung kanilang training para matugunan yung mga pangangailangan panahon ng may kalamidad or emergencies, at hindi na kailangan pa ng bagong struktura, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Well, Mr. Speaker, this representation believes that kailangan din nating gabayan yung Health Emergency Management Bureau, HEMB, as their reference on implementing that specific mandate that you mentioned earlier, no? So ako pa rin ay naniniwala na kapag gumawa tayo at sinabi natin, okay, we are mandating you to create this MRC and capacitate them, and have that continuous training provided with them ready for deployment in times of emergency. Naniniwala ako, sir, na mas makaka-respond tayo readily when pandemics or an outbreaks sets in or comes in.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. One appreciation na nakita ko rito, no, with the current setup, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, ang kasalukuyan kasing setup, no, ng Health Emergency Bureau ng DOH ay ang mga health professionals will be mobilized, no, through voluntary enlistment during times of health emergencies only, no? Pero dito sa ang pagkakaiba nitong sa ating bagong panukalang batas ngayon, maliban doon sa kalamidad, health emergencies, no, ay ang mga magiging miyembro ng Medical Reserve Corps ay pwede rin silang ma-deploy actually during times of gaya ng nabanggit ko kanina, during state of war and lawless violence, no? So is that a correct appreciation, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker? Ang pagkakaiba ng current setup and the setup being proposed under this bill in consideration.
Yes, Mr. Speaker. I think, Mr. Speaker, ay importante na ma-recognize natin the importance of having this bill is that yung current setup natin, the workforce that we have, wala pong enough tayo, no? Kung kaya ino-open natin, even those who are retired already and not in active practice, na tawagin through this MRC. So, I think we need a structure, a good structure for deployment in times of pandemics or public health emergencies.
Okay, thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. At least that is very clear now to this representation that one of the objectives of this bill is actually really for the government, no, to make use of the services of private physicians, medical students, and allied health organizations for military purposes, no, or during state of war or during lawless violence. Because as it is now, the Health Emergency Bureau, as well as the NDRRMC, already serve the purpose of responding during disasters and emergencies, but not really during war and state of lawlessness. Now, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, another appreciation that after reading through the bill that I got is that the objective of organizing a medical corps, reserve corps, is because of the realization that indeed, as mentioned earlier by the good sponsor, we lack health professionals or health workers to address the health needs of our people, especially during these emergencies that you mentioned. Is that a correct appreciation, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Yes, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, that is why in Section 9 of the bill in consideration, we are mandating the creation, to create mobilization centers in every province for the MRC. No? In Section 10, also of the same bill, we are mandating the DOH to procure and maintain mobilization stocks for the MRC. In Section 17, we provide appropriations for other budget requirements. No? So, if along that line, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, if the realization of the committee, if it is the realization of the committee, as well as the good sponsor, that the real problem here is the lack of health workers to address the health needs of our people, why then wala ho tayong di natin itinutulak, halimbawa na gawing regular, no? Dagdagan ang mga healthcare professionals na ipapasok sa iba't ibang ahensya ng ating pamahalaan, especially with the DOH. No? Alam natin na ang mga health units natin sa iba't ibang antas ay kulang ang ating mga health professionals. No? So, parang ang lumalabas dito, nakakatipid ang pamahalaan, no? Dahil sa halip na tugunan niya ang problema ng kakulangan ng ating mga public health professionals, it will just organize a medical reserve corps with voluntary members and spend for some training. But again, to this representation, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, hindi nito tinutugunan ang tunay na problema ng ating healthcare system na kulang ang kanyang personnel. May we get a reaction, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Hindi naman po sa hindi itinutulak na magkaroon ng karagdagan na manggagawa, no? Pagdating doon sa aspeto ng pagtugon sa problema ng kalusugan. Definitely kasama po ako doon sa advokasya na ma-field upan yung mga kinakailangan. Ang pagkakaiba lang po dito sa Medical Reserve Corps, as I mentioned kanina nga po, yung sino-sino ba yung po pwede na makasama dito, no? At sinabi natin dito doon sa pool of trained responders, no? Ay hindi lang yung mga nandoon sa edad na po pwedeng magtrabaho sa gobyerno, kundi retired also and unlicensed, no? The graduates of allied health professionals. So, meron tayong licensed allied health professionals and meron ding hindi licensed na po pwedeng i-train. So merong limitations on hiring, no? Meron tayong nakikita na even though available, for example po ang nurses natin, meron po tayong mga nurses na pangangailangan sa lahat ng mga hospitals or at all levels of healthcare. But kailangan natin ng yung mga unlicensed natin, limited yung opportunities nila in the government or in private institutions. And naniniwala tayo, kailangan talaga natin ng reserve. Etong mga hindi qualified and napapasok at this time, and those who are in the private sector ay pwedeng makapag-enlist. So hindi lang siya sa government kasi. Those who are employed in the government can also be a member of or can be enlisted in MRC, no? So yun siguro sir yung pagkakaiba nito, Mr. Speaker.
Maraming salamat, Madam Sponsor, Sir Speaker. Tama po ang ating kagalang-galang na sponsor. Sa tunayan, ang sponsoring committee ay maraming mga panukalang batas, no, na naipasa rin para matugunan ang kakulangan ng ating mga healthcare professionals. Ang gusto ko lang pong puntuhan, sa halip na dahil dito ho sa ating panukalang batas, no, nabanggit ko na ito kanina, some funds will really be diverted, no, for purposes, no, na sa tingin ko ay natutugunan na sa kasalukuyang mga setup, no, ng Department of Health, no. Kailangan nating mag-allocate uli ng pondo rito. Halimbawa nga doon sa pag-set up ng mga mobilization centers, no, na minamandato rito na every province should create a mobilization center. This will require appropriation again, no, from the government, no, just to house MRC members, no. And Section 10, funds will again be diverted for mobilization stock, no, that will be allocated or set aside for the MRC. And finally, in Section 17, we have to set up a Medical Reserve Corps Fund, no? This will add another layer. In fact, baka ang isa sa pinapangambahan natin, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker, this will again add to another layer in our bureaucracy, no? And especially now that we are in a very deep crisis, aggravated by this COVID-19 pandemic, and some experts are saying that this will not be the first nor the last pandemic that we will possibly experience. So, yung very limited resources po natin na pwedeng gamitin just to strengthen the current programs that we have now will be diverted again because we want to create a new agency or a new layer in our bureaucracy. So yun po ang isa sa ating agam-agam dito sa panukalang batas na ito, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. And may we get a reaction or a reply from the sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Naunawaan po natin yung apprehensions ng ating kagalang-galang na Honorable Zarate na another fund will be allocated to operationalize, no, this MRC. But pwede naman, sir, like for example in mobilization centers, hindi naman sinasabi na magpagawa, but it depends on the provincial government, no? They can just designate an existing multipurpose hall. When it comes to mobilization of the stock, we just have to harmonize the existing stocks that we have and put in one place and magkaroon ng proper deployment. I don't wanna see it na meron pong duplication of funding and diversion of funding, but actually, we can use the existing fund here, no? Because meron naman po tayo, like for example, in this pandemic that we are experiencing right now, when we say the mobilization stock, now that we experience this, now pagdating ng panahon, kung kinakailangan, meron na tayo na pondo na magagamit at hindi masasayang, no? So ready tayo. I think kailangan lang din bantayan siguro, Mr. Speaker, ng Kongreso yung funding requirement to implement this. But I don't want to see nga this na magkakaroon ng another fund needed kasi like for example sa training, we do have naman existing training na pwedeng i-incorporate natin doon with this existing trainings, yung mga skills training na kinakailangan ng ating Medical Reserve Corps. So, yes, kailangan bantayan po yung tamang paggamit doon sa pondo. But I don't think there will be additional burden to the government to fund this bill.
Thank you, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Incidentally, will the good sponsors state for the record, saan po ba natin kukunin ang pondo to fund this program? From the appropriation of the DOH, or this will be financed by funds coming from the local government unit? Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker, on Section 18 appropriations, ang nakalagay po dito ay that the fund will be under the department or the DOH program, no? So under the GAA po.
Okay, so this will not be a function that will be devolved to the local government units. Is that a good appreciation, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker?
No, sir.
Okay, thank you. Naitanong ko po yan dahil alam naman po natin by 2022, sa full implementation ng Mandanas ruling, ay napakalaking pondo na malaking bahagi ng buwis ay mapupunta na sa local government units. Nakikita po ba ng ating good sponsor, Mr. Speaker, ang implikasyon nito in terms of funding as far as the current bill in consideration is concerned?
Definitely, sir, Mr. Speaker, nakikita po natin in any of the proposed bills in the Committee on Health, tinitingnan po natin ang impact ng Mandanas-Garcia ruling, especially doon po sa pag-implementa ng mga programa ng Department of Health.
Salamat po doon sa katugunan, Madam Sponsor, Mr. Speaker. Bilang panghuli po, gusto ko lang mag-manifest na sa tingin ng kinatawang ito, there are already existing mechanisms with the present setup that we have with the Department of Health, doon sa usapin ng halimbawa pagtugon sa mga kalamidad at maging sa mga emergencies that may arise. Sa tingin po ng kinatawang ito, ang kakulangan ay ang pag-rationalize ng mga programa na already existing na at mga struktura at hindi kailangang palitan ito o gumawa tayo ng panibagong layer o bureaucracy na matingkad yung kanyang sa struktura pa lamang, matingkad na sinusunod nito ang militaristang struktura. At ito ay gagamitin, hindi lamang, gaya ng nabanggit kanina, ang magiging volunteers dito sa Medical Reserve Corps na ito, ay sila ay ipapadala maging doon sa mga war zones, or even in areas where there are lawless violence in the future. On the other hand, malinaw na nakita rin natin dito na ang kalakhang problema talaga sa ating sistema ng pangkalusugan ay kung paano ba nating i-strengthen ang ating, especially our public health system, ang kakulangan ng mga personnel at ang kakulangan ng suporta para sa ating mga healthcare professionals na nasa ating public healthcare system. Hindi tugon ang sa tingin ng kinatawang ito ang pag-create ng isang struktura na hindi naman ito nirespondihan ang malalim na problema ng ating public healthcare system. So yun lang po ang aking mga katanungan at paglilinaw sa ating kagalang-galang na sponsor. We thank the good sponsor for entertaining the questions and for the answers in clarification to some of the provisions of this bill in consideration. Thank you, good sponsor, and thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maraming salamat po, Mr. Speaker, sa ating kagalang-galang na Honorable Zarate sa kanyang paglinaw at iginagalang po natin ang kanyang pananaw at posisyon dito sa ating panukala. Maraming salamat, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you, Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, there being no other member who wishes to interpret the sponsor, I move that we terminate the period of sponsorship and debate. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Any objection? Chair hears none. We now terminate the period of interpellation and debate.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Period of amendments now open.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we open the period of committee amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Period of committee amendments now open.
Mr. Speaker, there being no committee amendments, I move that we proceed with the individual amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. We now proceed with the period of individual amendments.
Speaker, I move that we terminate the period of individual amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Period of individual amendments now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we terminate the period of amendments.
Any objection? Chair hears none. Period of amendments now terminated.
Mr. Speaker, I move for the approval on second reading, House Bill number 8999. So move, Mr. Speaker.
There is a motion to approve House Bill 8999. Those who are in favor, please say aye. Those who are against, please say nay. The ayes have it. House Bill 8999 is now approved on second reading.
House Bill number 9007.
Wala to. Move to consider first. Move to consider.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I move that we consider on second reading House Bill number 9007 under Committee Report number 873 and that the Secretary General be directed to read the title of the House Bill. So move, Mr. Speaker.
Secretary General, please read the title.
House Bill number 9007, an act regulating the manufacture, use, sale, packaging, distribution, advertisement, and promotion of electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery systems and heated tobacco products.
Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, I would like to recognize Congressman Wes Gatchalian.
Deputy Speaker Wes Gatchalian is now recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. May we ask the Secretary Gen if they are in receipt of my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, Deputy Speaker.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to all my colleagues, both physically and those in Zoom right now. Being the Deputy Speaker for Trade and Industry, it is my honor to sponsor House Bill number 9007, otherwise known as the Act Regulating the Manufacture, Use, Sale, Packaging, Distribution, Advertisement, and Promotion of electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery systems and heated tobacco products. Mr. Speaker, the regulation of ENDS, HTPs, and other similar products is not new. It can be traced as far back as the Tobacco Regulation Act, which was passed in 2003. The Tobacco Regulation Act is an omnibus law regulating smoking in public places, tobacco advertising, promotion, and sponsorship and sales restrictions, among others. And while the Tobacco Regulation Act was passed even before HTPs were introduced into the Philippine market, some argue that the definition of tobacco products is broad enough to include HTPs. In 2012, the 15th Congress passed Republic Act number 10351 or the Excise Tax Reform Law, which take effect on January 2013. It played a major role in regulating tobacco products. The law corrected a long-standing weakness on the alcohol and tobacco excise tax system and increased the excise taxes on these products to reduce demand. The following year, the Graphic Health Warning Law, which regulates the packaging and labeling of tobacco products, was passed. It is argued that this law, together with the Tobacco Regulation Act, are sufficient to govern the regulation of HTPs. In the same year, Mr. Speaker, 2014, the use of ENDS gained national significance, prompting the DOH to issue Administrative Order number 2014-00-0008 or the Rules and Regulation on ENDS. This was the first regulation issued by a government agency specifically regulating ENDS. In 2017, the President issued Executive Order number 26, Series of 2017, which principally prohibits smoking within enclosed public places and public conveyances. In addition, EO 26 laid down the standards for designating smoking areas and provided the penalties for violations of the order. It can be noted that there was yet no specific prohibition on ENDS when EO 26 was issued back in 2017. On May 30, 2018, House Resolution number 125 was approved by the 17th Congress. The resolution urged the Department of Health to promote harm reduction measures as part of its national tobacco control strategy, particularly the use of electronic cigarettes as an alternative for smokers. In June of 2019, the DOH issued another administrative order, AO number 2019-0007, for the revised rules and regulation on ENDS and ENNDS. The DOH issued the order to provide an updated policies on ENDS, which shall serve as a guide to all individuals, enterprises, and businesses which seek to manufacture, distribute, import, export, sell, other for sale and use of these products. In July 2019, Republic Act number 11346 was signed into law, which raised tobacco excise tax rates and imposed taxes on heated tobacco and vapor products, which took effect on January 1, 2020. Less than a month later, Mr. Speaker, this Congress passed on third and final reading, House Bill 1026, seeking to impose even higher taxes on HTPs, vapor products, nicotine salt, conventional freebase or classic nicotine, and other similar products. This bill has since been passed into law as Republic Act number 11467 and is seen to generate 16.3 billion in 2020 and a total of 108 billion over the next 5 years. In October 1, 2019, Mr. Speaker, the RTCO Pasig issued a writ of preliminary injunction enjoining DOH from implementing Administrative Order 2019-0007 and exercising jurisdiction over e-cigarettes. Because of the injunction, there is a gap in the regulation of ENDS whereby the industry is again left to their own devices. On November 19, 2019, President Duterte proclaimed that he will ban the use and the importation of e-cigarettes. This prompted the PNP to issue a memorandum the following day ordering the enforcement of the President's pronouncement and the arrest of all violators. The Department of Justice supported the President's pronouncement, stating that vaping is covered by the existing ban on public smoking if the same uses any tobacco derivatives. The foregoing are the current major laws and regulations governing ENDS and HTPs. These multisectoral measures were issued because of scientific research which state that the consumption of any of these products, cigarettes, ENDS, HTPs, is harmful to human health. According to the World Health Organization, smoking cigarettes is the single greatest preventable cause of death in the world today. It kills more than 8 million people every year, and unfortunately, around 80% of the 1.1 billion smokers in the world live in low and middle income countries like the Philippines. Mr. Speaker, based on the latest survey conducted by the Department of Health and the Philippine Statistics Authority, of the 108 million Filipinos, there are around 15.9 million Filipino smokers, or 14.7% of the population. Of these smokers, 12 million or 76% are interested or plan to quit smoking tobacco. According to the Philippine E-Cigarette Industry Association, or the PISEA, this is where ENDS or HTPs can play an important role. It allegedly provides a less harmful choice for those who wish to quit smoking regular tobacco. This is supported by data from the European Commission, which found that 61% of those who start using e-cigarettes do it to stop smoking. Whether or not this is true, the ENDS and HTP industry, which has been around for more than a decade, has grown to become a multi-million peso industry. It has 800,000 users, representing less than 1% of the Philippine population. It should be noted, Mr. Speaker, that the growth of the ENDS and HTP market is not limited to the Philippines. It is a worldwide trend. Data from Euromonitor International shows that the global market size for ENDS and HTP products are steadily growing. In 2011, the global market size for vapor products was estimated at less than $2 billion. By 2016, the market had grown to around $12.3 billion. This represents a growth of almost 818% in 6 years. By 2019, Euromonitor projects the global market to grow to over $26 billion, representing a growth of over 1,700% in 9 years. Based on World Health Organization's data, vapor products still represent a small market compared to other forms of tobacco products, which include cigarettes, cigars, cigarillos, smoking tobacco, and smokeless tobacco. But by 2021, Euromonitor estimates that vapor products will be more valuable than all other tobacco products except cigarettes, with a global value of $34 billion. Though the market is still small compared to cigarette products, which has a market value of $683 billion, what is clear is that the popularity of vapor products is steadily growing. The growth of the ENDS and HTP market has also benefited the Philippines trade and industry. According to the PISEA, there are now over 879 vaping stores employing at least 2,637 employees. In addition, the Philippine industry for vapor products also contributes to our export market because they are known to manufacture and export these products abroad. However, because of a number of issues that have recently gained media attention both in the Philippines and abroad, the use of ENDS and HTPs is now a national concern. So much so that the President recently issued a directive banning the importation and use of ENDS and HTPs in public spaces. The Committee on Trade and Industry respects the directive of the President and sees this as an opportunity for the Philippines to finally regulate this innovative device. According to the World Trade Organization, at least 72 countries regulate ends, while 33 ban the sale of ends. However, despite being banned, data shows that ends are still known to be available in 14 out of the 33 countries through unregulated markets. The other 88 countries have no specific law or regulation on ends yet. Based on World Health Organization's data, of the 72 countries which regulate ends, 41 regulate it as consumer products, while 30 countries regulate it as a medicinal product. House Bill number 9007, Mr. Speaker, is our attempt at regulating this product. These committees on health and trade and industry acknowledge that there are risks associated with these products. Nevertheless, initial studies are showing that these risks are either the same or much less than conventional cigarettes, which are currently widely available nationwide. Thus, ends and HCPs will be available for sale in the Philippines. They will be strictly regulated. For example, they shall not be available to minors, just like conventional cigarettes. Online sales of these products will be allowed. However, their distribution shall also be limited to persons above the age of 18 years old. Finally, Mr. Speaker, these products will be under the supervision and control of the Department of Trade and Industry and the FDA to ensure that the health of the Filipino is protected. In view of the foregoing, Mr. Speaker, and being the Deputy Speaker for Trade and Industry, I am seeking your support for the immediate passage of this bill. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Chairman, I wish to recognize Congressman Alfred Garbin of Bicol Party List for his sponsorship speech. So moved, Madam Chair.
Representative Alfredo Garbin is hereby recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, our dear colleagues, it is the pleasure of this representation to co-sponsor House Bill 9007, especially in honor of our departed colleague, my fellow Ako Bicol representative, Rodel Batucabe. 5 years ago, Congressman Batucabe encouraged me to support his advocacy on tobacco harm reduction by filing House Bill number 330, or the Vaporized Nicotine Product Regulation Act of 2016. He was such a staunch advocate for tobacco harm reduction, and he supported his proportionate regulation of these novel tobacco and nicotine products. And I'm happy, Madam Speaker, that tobacco harm reduction is now reflected in the declarations of policy of House Bill 9007. I am sure Congressman Rodel Batucabe is smiling in heaven that this is now reflected in this bill. So what is tobacco harm reduction, Mr. Speaker or Madam Speaker? And why is this important? In 1962, the Royal College of Physicians published a report that would spark a global campaign against the harms of smoking, titled Smoking and Health, of Summary of Report of the Royal College of Physicians of London on smoking in relations to cancer and other diseases. This later inspired another landmark report in the United States, published in 1964, titled Smoking and Health, report of the Advisory Committee to the Surgeon General of the Public Health Service. For 45 years later, the Royal College Physicians would publish in 2007 another radical report, this time advocating tobacco harm reduction, titled Harm Reduction and Nicotine Addiction, helping people who can't quit. The preparatory page read, the Royal College of Physicians first called the radical policies to reduce the prevalence of smoking in 1962. Several policies were recommended then have since become established international practice. However, those measures then and now do not address the problems of smokers who cannot quit. The majority of the 150 million deaths from smoking expected worldwide in the next 20 years will occur in people who are smoking today. These people need help. In this report, we make the case for harm reduction strategies to protect smokers. We demonstrate that smokers smoke predominantly for nicotine, that nicotine itself is not specially hazardous, and that if nicotine could be provided in a form that is acceptable and effective as a cigarette substitute, millions of lives could be saved. Hence, in 2016, the Royal College of Physicians strengthened its position supporting harm reduction approach to tobacco control when it published its now well-cited report titled Nicotine Without Smoke. Tobacco harm reduction, the Royal College of Physicians report discussed the public health opportunities of vaping or the e-cigarettes on the subject of relative risk based on the smoke and vapor toxicology, the RCP stated. Although it is not possible to precisely quantify the long-term risk associated with e-cigarettes, the available data suggests that they are unlikely to exceed 5% of those associated with smoked tobacco products and may well be substantially lower than this figure. London is not alone in embracing this view on nicotine and harm reduction. Former US FDA Commissioner Dr. Scott Gottlieb himself announced in one of his speeches that nicotine is not directly responsible for the cancer, lung disease and heart disease that kill hundreds of thousands of Americans each year. It's the other chemical compound in tobacco and in the smoke created by setting tobacco on fire that directly and primarily cause the illness and death, not the nicotine. This scientific view has now been embedded in the US FDA's strategic policy roadmap. In addition, the US National Academies of Sciences, Engineering and Medicine, or NASEM, also published a report supporting the findings of a number of scientific papers that e-cigarettes are likely to be far less harmful than combustible tobacco cigarettes. The government of Canada and New Zealand has now also recognized the potential benefit of smokers can gain when switching to vaping. Their decision to adopt such policies is anchored on decades of research on the subject of nicotine, e-cigarettes, tobacco, and harm reduction. In conclusion, Madam Speaker, we would like to end by citing again the Royal College of Physicians 2007 report. Harm reduction is a fundamental component of many aspects of medicine and indeed everyday life. Yet for some reason, effective harm reduction principles have not been applied to tobacco smoking. This report makes the case for radical reform of the way that nicotine products are regulated and used in society. The ideas we present are controversial and challenge many current and entrenched views in medicine and public health. They also have the potential to save millions of lives. They deserve serious consideration. Indeed, Madam Speaker, this bill deserves our serious consideration and our support. I hope our colleagues will support the immediate passage of this measure. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I would like to recognize Congresswoman Sharon Garin to deliver her sponsorship speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Garin is hereby recognized. Sharon Garin.
Good afternoon, Mr. Speaker and dear colleagues. It is the pleasure of this representation to present for consideration House Bill number 9007, or an act regulating the manufacture, use, sale, packaging, distribution, advertisement, and promotion of electronic nicotine and non-nicotine delivery systems and heated tobacco products. First of all, I would like to congratulate the then chairman of the Committee on Trade and Industry, Deputy Speaker Wes Gatchalian, for his patience among all the members. But finally, it passed through his committee with a lot of heartache and happiness. But I am happy to report that this measure is co-authored by 154 of our colleagues. That this bill was approved with an overwhelming 102 affirmative votes with only 12 negative votes and 2 abstentions. After extensive discussions of the Joint Committees of Trade and Industry and Health. In passing this bill, we aim to achieve 3 objectives. First, although the country is already experiencing a proliferation of sale and use of HTPs and vaping products among Filipino consumers, we do not have a clear and effective law and regulation, including product standards that should govern these products. Thus, through the passage of this bill, we will fill this gap on regulation. Second is to address the unintended and potential adverse consequences on the use of these products. Thus, we have included in this bill on mechanisms on controlling safety risks and preventing youth uptake of all tobacco and nicotine products. Finally, by recognizing the principle of harm reduction, we envision that this bill will contribute in the protection of public health, not only for the non-smokers, but also for the current adult smokers. I have attended religiously the public hearings, including 6 technical working groups with the Joint Committee held, where we invited experts and scientists and listened to other stakeholders, numerous stakeholders. We listened to the experts, we debated with the scientists, we received and read all evidence submitted to us. One very important lesson we learned from the committee's public hearings and the TWGs is not all nicotine products are the same. These novel and emerging nicotine and tobacco products are substantially different, probably less harmful and better than smoking cigarettes, and therefore should be regulated differently and proportionately. In fact, there are at least 32 independent, local, international, renowned organizations that agree that vaping is far better than smoking. Unfortunately, it remains the case that as of 2020, 85 countries like the Philippines have no specific laws yet or regulations regarding nicotine vaping products. Note that 75 countries already have laws regulating the sale of vaping products, meaning allow the use and sale of these products. There's a minority of countries, around 36, that have banned these products, but this is down from 39 in 2018, and the latest country to reverse its policy from a ban to regulation is Norway. But Mr. Speaker, we also listen to the concerns of our public health advocates, especially in the issues of youth uptake. Thus, under HB 9007, there are provisions on A, minimum age in purchase, B, tamper-resistant and child-resistant design, and C, proof of age verification. There are also provisions on product communication restrictions, restrictions on vapor products and HTP promotions, ban on sponsorships. There are moreover provisions on public place use, standard for designated vaping areas, and huge penalties for airing companies. Finally, there is also provision providing for strict standards for the manufacturing of vaping products that industry should comply or else face penalties. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we recognize that the entry of alternative products such as vapor products and HTPs in the market raises the need for regulation, primarily in the interest of public welfare. On top of public health concerns, regulation is needed to balance factors such as revenue generation, trade and commerce, job creation, the protection of minors and non-smokers, public safety against substandard or malfunctioning products, the interest of tobacco farmers, the interest in the industry, and the interest of all stakeholders who stand to be affected by the introduction of said category. This bill, when passed into law, will provide for a holistic regulatory framework for vapor products and HTPs to take into consideration and balance the interests of general public along with the stakeholders most interested in their use and sale. Mr. Speaker, we earnestly hope for the support of the honorable members of this august body for the immediate passage of this measure, because we earnestly hope for your support to regulate this product before it's too late. This House Bill 9002 will protect our children, will protect the smokers, the non-smokers, and likely public health. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, and good afternoon to everyone.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we suspend consideration of House Bill number 9007. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then House Bill number 9007 is hereby suspended.
Madam Speaker, I move for consideration on third reading, House Bill number 8842, and for this purpose, direct the Secretary General to read the title of the House Bill. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the Secretary General is hereby directed to do so.
House Bill number 8842, anak renaming the Cagayan de Oro Convention Center, located at Barangay Indahag, Cagayan de Oro City as Aquilino Q. Pimentel Jr. International Convention Center.
Madam Speaker,
Majority Leader.
I also move that we call the roll of members for nominal voting.
Secretary General is directed to do so.
Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill number 8842 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abueg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez France, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Aumentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Banyas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barsaga, Baskug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Beron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulot, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro France, Castro, Fredenil, Cayetano, Alan Peter, Cayetano, Maria La Arni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Ko Wangko, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Quaresma, Cueva, Colyamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Loso Montalia, Di Maporo Abdullah, Di Maporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Rigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Guico, Gullas, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Haloso, Xavier, Jimenez, Ko Eliza, Ko Wilton, Konghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim, Lim Kaichong, Lopez, Loyola, Losotan, Macapagal Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadato, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles Jericho, Nograles Juan, Olasco, Nunez Malanaon, Uaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Roni, Ordanes, Ortega, Uano Dizon, Pacquiao, Alberto, Pacquiao, Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pechay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Sieda, Romualdo, Romulo, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Sangkopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Savellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, Si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Tutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate Zubiri. Second call, in consideration of House Bill Number 8842 on third reading. Abaya, Acosta, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Omentado, Bagatsing, Bernos, Biron, Bulut, Kabatbat, Kanama, Cardema, Kari, Kuchunggalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Saldi, Ko Juanco, Cueva, Defensor Michael, Dimaporo, Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, D. Faustino Ino, Erice, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez Fernando, Flores, Garin Sharon, Goed, Gonzaga, Guya, Co Wilton, Lacson, Liachon, Lopez, Mangawang, Marcoleta, Marino, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles Juan, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Ordanes, Pichay, Pineda, Romulo, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sherney, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Yap Victor, Zubiri.
With 231 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill Number 8842 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move for consideration on third reading, House Number 8882. And for this purpose, may I request the Secretary General to read the title of the bill and thereafter call the roll for nominal voting.
The Secretary General is directed to do so.
House Bill Number 8882, an act revising the Charter of the City of Baguio. Roll call of members in consideration of House Bill Number 8882 on third reading. Abante, Abaya, Abellanosa, Abu, Abeg Saldivar, Abunda, Acop, Acosta, Acosta Alba, Adyong, Advincula, Agabas, Agaraw, Aglipay, Aguinaldo, Albano, Almario, Alonte, Alvarez Franz, Alvarez Genaro, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amante Matba, Amatong, Angara, Aragones, Arbison, Arenas, Arroyo, Atienza, Omentado, Babasa, Bagatsing, Balindong, Bañas Nograles, Barba, Barbers, Baronda, Barzaga, Bascug, Bautista, Bautista Bandigan, Belmonte, Benitez, Bernos, Biazon, Billones, Biron, Bolilla, Bondok, Bordado, Bravo, Brosas, Bulut, Bustos, Kabatbat, Cabochan, Cabredo, Cagas, Calderon, Calixto, Caminero, Campos, Canama, Kawagdan, Cardema, Cari, Castelo, Castro Franz, Castro Fredenil, Cayetano, Alan Peter, Cayetano, Mariela Arni, Celeste, Chato, Chipeco, Chungalao, Co Angelica, Co Elizaldi, Cojuanco, Coliantes, Crisologo, Cuwa, Quaresma, Cueva, Culiamat, Dagook, Dalipe, Dalog, Daza, De Jesus, De Venecia, Defensor Lawrence, Defensor Michael, De Los Santos, De Losa Montalia, Dimaporo Abdullah, Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit, Duhali, Duterte, Di Faustino Ino, Di Faustino Michael, Di Ian, Ebcas, Ecleo, Elago, Enverga, Erice, Rigel, Ermita Buhain, Escudero, Espina, Espino, Estrella, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando, Ferrer Juliet, Ferrer Luis, Flores, Fortun, Fortuno, Frasco, Fuentebella, Gaite, Garbin, Garcia Jose Enrique, Garcia Pablo Jan, Garcia Vincent, Garin Janet, Garin Sharon, Gasataya, Gatchalian, Gato, Heron, Goed, Gomark, Gonzaga, Gonzales Aurelio, Gonzales Neptali, Gonzales Sandro, Goriseta, Gico, Gulias, Guya, Haresco, Hataman, Hernandez, Herrera D, Hofer, Halosos, Javier, Jimenez, Co Elisa, Co Wilton, Kunghun, Labad-Labad, Lacson, Lacson Noel, Lagman, Lagon, Lara, Lazatin, Liachon, Legarda, Lim Kaychong, Lopez, Loyola, Lusotan, Macapagal-Arroyo, Maceda, Madrona, Malapitan, Mangawang, Mangudadatu, Marcoleta, Mariano Hernandez, Marino, Marquez, Martinez, Matba, Matugas, Mendoza, Mercado, Momo, Natividad Naganyo, Nava, Nieto, Noel, Nograles, Jericho, Nograles 1, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Owaminal, Olivares, Ong Jose, Ong Ronnie, Ordanes, Ortega, Owano Dizon, Pacquiao Alberto, Pacquiao Rogelio, Padiernos, Paduano, Palma, Pancho, Panotes, Peña, Pichay, Pimentel, Pineda, Plaza, Puno, Kimbo, Radaza, Ramirez Sato, Remulla, Revilla, Reyes, Rivera, Robes, Rodriguez, Roman, Romero, Romualdez Ferdinand, Romualdez Yeda, Romualdo, Romero, Roque, Sakdalan, Sagarbaria, Sakaluran, Salceda, Salimbangon, Salo, Sanchez, Angcopan, Santos Recto, Sarmiento, Saulug, Sabellano, Xiao, Silverio, Singson, Singson Mihan, Sinsuwat, Swansing Estrelita, Swansing Horacio, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, Suntay, Si Alvarado, Taduran, Talyado, Tambunting, Tan Alaysa, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Shari, Tan Sherny, Tejada, Teves Arnolfo, Teves Jose, Tiangco, Tolentino, Torres Gomez, Tulfo, Tupas, Chutor, T. Alan, T. Diego, Umali Alfonso, Umali Maria Victoria, Unabia, Ungab, Uy Juliet, Uy Rolando, Valeriano, Valmayor, Vargas, Vargas Alfonso, Velasco, Veloso, Vergara, Villa, Villafuerte, Villanueva Eduardo, Villanueva Noel, Villar, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Violago, Yap Eric, Yap Victor, Yu, Zamora Ronaldo, Zamora Waikorat, Zarate, Zubiri. Second call in consideration of House Bill number 8882 on third reading. Abaya, Acosta, Alvarez Pantaleon, Amatong, Omentado, Bagatsing, Bernos, Biron, Bulot, Kabatbat, Kanama, Cardema, Kari, Chungalaw, Ko Angelica, Ko Elizalde, Ko Wangko, Cueva, Defensor Michael Dimaporo Khalid, Duavit Duhali, D. Faustino Ino, Erice, Fariñas Ria, Fariñas Rudy Cesar, Fernandez, Fernando Flores, Garin Sharon, Goed, Gonzaga, Guya, Cowilton, Lacson, Liachon, Lopez, Mangawang, Marcoleta, Marino, Matba, Mendoza, Mercado, Nograles 1, Nolasco, Nunez Malaniaon, Ordanes, Pichay, Pineda, Romulo, Sagarbaria, Salceda, Sanchez, Singson, Suarez Aleta, Suarez David, C. Alvarado, Tan Angelina, Tan Samir, Tan Sherny, Torres Gomez, T. Alan, Uy Juliet, Veloso, Villaraza Suarez, Villarica, Yap Victor, Zubiri.
With 231 members voting in the affirmative, 0 in the negative, and 0 abstentions, House Bill number 8882 is hereby approved on third and final reading. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we authorize Deputy Speaker and Deputy Majority Leader Juan Pablo Rimpi Bondoc to act on measures on inquiries in aid of legislation for their referral to the appropriate committees. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then Deputy Speaker Rimpi Bond and Deputy Majority Leader Rimpi Bondoc is hereby authorized to do so. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, on behalf of the majority, I move to nominate nominate and elect Representative Jose Gay Padiernos as member of the Committee on Suffrage and Electoral Reforms, Vice Representative Francisco Datol Jr. So move, Madam Chair.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the said nominations are hereby adopted. Majority Leader.
Mr. Speaker, we are in receipt of the Bicameral Conference Committee report on the disagreeing provisions of House Bill number 8145 and Senate Bill number 1877, extending and enhancing the implementation of the lifeline rate by amending Republic Act 9136, otherwise known as the EFIRA law. Mr. Speaker, in accordance with the rules, I move that we ratify the said Bicameral Conference Committee report.
All those in favor of the ratification of the BICAM report say aye. All those against say nay. The ayes have it. Said BICAM report is hereby ratified.
Madam Speaker, we are in receipt of a message from the Senate informing the House that the Senate passed with amendments House Bill number 8532 entitled An Act Granting Philippine Citizenship to Kaku Angie Frank Williams Kuame. Madam Speaker, we have been advised that the Committee on Justice, sponsor of the said House Bill, as well as the author thereof, has no objections to the amendments introduced thereto by the Senate. In accordance with our rules, I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 8632.
Is there any objection? The chair hears none. Then the motion to concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 6413 is hereby approved. Majority
Madam
Leader.
Speaker, we are in receipt of a message from the Senate informing the House that the Senate passed with amendments House Bill number 6413 entitled An Act Dividing the Province of Maguindanao into two provinces, namely Northern Maguindanao and Southern Maguindanao. Madam Speaker, we have been advised that the Committee on Local Government, sponsor of the said House Bill, as well as the author thereof, has no objections to the amendments introduced by the Senate. In accordance with our rules, I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 8413.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the motion to concur with Senate amendments to House Bill number 8413 is hereby approved.
Madam Speaker, I move for the change of referral of House Resolution number 1497, resolution congratulating and commending Mayor Bico N. Soto, George I. Royeca, and other recipients of the Outstanding Young Men of the Philippines 2020 Award bestowed by the Junior Chamber International Philippines, Toy Foundation, Inc., Jerry Rojas Foundation, and PLDT Home Piver, from the Committee on Rules to the Committee on Youth and Sports Development.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then the referral is hereby adopted.
Madam Speaker, in accordance with our rules governing inquiries in aid of legislation, I move that we refer House Resolution numbers 1665 and 1668 to the Special Committee on Creative Industries and Performing Arts. So move, Madam Speaker.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, then it is so referred to the Special Committee on Creative Industries and the Performing Arts. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we open the privilege hour.
Is there any objection? Hearing none, the privilege hour is hereby open. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we recognize Representative Aloy Lim of Party List Magdalo for her privilege speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
Representative Aloy Lim from the
I'm sorry. Of Party List RAM.
Representative Aloy Lim from the Party List RAM is hereby recognized. Please proceed, Madam Aloy.
Madam Speaker, distinguished colleagues, good afternoon. Women's Month is more than just a celebration of women's talents, creativity, achievements, and contributions to society. It is more than just celebrating the strides we took to demand recognition and equality. This month is just another month of the many months we will entirely celebrate to challenge the culture that denigrates our dignity and robs us of our self-worth. Some may dismiss us as noisy bitches. Others feel us as thorns in their patriarchal lives. Let us then be noisy bitches and stinging thorns that will never go away until such time that we are able to raise generations and generations of Filipinos who shun discrimination and treat women as equals. There are so many issues affecting women, but allow me to focus on one significant issue at hand, the economic empowerment of women. According to the Philippine Commission on Women, the rate of labor force participation of women in our country is at 48%, while the rate for men is at 77%. It means less than half of our working-age women, those ages 15 years and above, are working. In fact, according to the global economy, which provides business and economic data for 200 countries from 1990 to 2019, our female labor force participation averages 47.81%, with a minimum of 42.45% in 2017 and a maximum of 49.52% in 2014. Since 1990 until today, we've been struggling to bring our working-age women into the labor force. Exclusion from the labor force increased rate of poverty among women, decreased social mobility, dependency on husbands or other members of the family for survival, and vulnerability to abuse and different forms of discrimination. According to the study of the Philippine Institute for Development Studies on Gender Gaps in Labor Participation, this problem shows that some women are forced to take vulnerable employment such as self-employment and family work, which are often characterized by inadequate earnings, low productivity, and poor conditions that undermine workers' fundamental rights. The National Economic Development Authority, in its report, Determinants of Female Labor Force Participation in the Philippines, provided findings that will help us in crafting adequate and corrective legislations on this matter. According to the report, the rate of labor participation of young people ages 20 to 24 is high, and this rate is maintained for men until the age of retirement. However, the rate for women declines when they reach the age of 25 to 29, the childbearing period. Getting married and having children are significant factors that affect the participation of women in the labor force. Married women or those in consensual union are 40% less likely to work, and those with children 3 years and below are 16% less likely to seek employment. This indicates the stereotyping of women for domestic and reproductive roles. Another significant finding of NEDA is the factor of conditional cash transfers or 4Ps in discouraging women to join the labor force. There is a perception among 4Ps beneficiaries that they may be disqualified from the program if they work, or having work would prevent them from complying with the conditions of the cash transfer, like regularly bringing their children to medical and health checkups, sending their children to school, and attending monthly seminars. On the other hand, education plays a huge role in women's participation in the labor force. There is a higher rate of participation among women with college degree than the least educated or even the college undergraduates. Based on the report, low-educated women are less likely to be employed, and those who get employed are more likely to be working in private households or in the informal sector with low salary, inadequate social protection, and poor working condition. I repeat, poverty, discrimination, abuse, and dependency are just some of the problems brought about by the economic disempowerment of women. My dear colleagues, allow me to bring your attention to one silent and neglected sector that suffered the brunt of this disempowerment: the widows. These are the widows of our low-rank uniformed personnel, the widows of our ordinary government employees, and the widows of our daily wage earners. They who never got the chance to be gainfully employed. They who chose to become full housewives. They who took care of their elderly. They who worked side by side their husbands in tilling the land. They who, due to circumstances only known to them, became dependent economically on their husbands. The World Bank aptly worded them as widows who are often hidden from view in their own communities, and the absence of data limits broader public awareness about their issue. A widow who is economically dependent on her husband gets a double whammy: the loss of a loved one and the loss of the means to survive. Compound this with the burden of raising their children alone and providing them with the necessary education to survive when they reach maturity. She, who quit working at her most promising and productive years for marriage and domestic life, and suddenly loses her partner or husband, will find it tremendously difficult to rejoin the labor force. It is even doubly challenging for those who never had a taste of working, more so for those who are no longer in the working age bracket. These circumstances force some to accept informal and odd domestic jobs that neither give security in terms of remuneration nor protection against hazardous working conditions. There are instances among the low-income bracket of women drawn into prostitution. Others are compelled to enter into another relationship in order to have someone helping them raise the children or simply providing for their daily needs. This doesn't work well most of the time. Some find themselves digging their grave deeper. A Ukrainian-American writer, Victor Robinson, once said, "Widows are divided into two classes, the bereaved and the relieved. It is a relief for those in an abusive and unhealthy relationship. However, the sigh of relief might be temporary for those facing an uncertain future of standing on their own feet after years of dependency. I believe all widows are bereaved. The bereaved who lost their loving husband and supportive husband or partner, and the bereaved who lost her family's means of survival, not so much on losing someone abusive. At this juncture, I urge my dear honorable colleagues to look into the Survivors Benefits Program of the Government Service Insurance System and the Social Security System. I will file a resolution on this, specifically looking into the adequacy of burial benefits given the rising prices of funeral services and interment places. I would also ask for a review of the pension or allowance given to the dependents' minor children. This is to ensure that the pension or allowance not just meet their daily needs, but ensures that they finish their education. Another issue that needs our attention is the discriminative policy on common law partners. I am referring to deceased members who have never been married, but whose common law partner is not recognized as legitimate beneficiary. This policy should be looked into because most of the time, these common law partnerships beget children who equally need our protection. I also take the opportunity to call on our national government agencies to craft programs and projects that will benefit or give special assistance to our widows. In line with our oversight function, I will also file a resolution requiring these agencies to furnish Congress with a list of programs that benefit them. A recognition system may also be set up for outstanding widows who, despite of their multiple responsibilities, are able to contribute to nation building. Let us all work towards increasing the rate of women joining the labor force and decreasing their economic dependency on anyone. Let our efforts gear towards raising and supporting economically empowered women. Lastly, let our laws and programs reflect a recognition of the plight of the Filipino widows. Thank you very much and a pleasant afternoon once again.
Majority Leader. Madam Speaker, I move that the privileged speech of Honorable Aloy Lim be referred to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action. So move, Madam Speaker.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that Representative Franz Castro of Party List Act Teachers be recognized to avail of the privilege hour. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Franz Castro is recognized.
Maraming salamat, Ginang Speaker. Magandang araw po, Madam Speaker, at sa mga kapwa ko kinatawan. Nakakalungkot at nakagalit po na isa na namang guro na miyembro ng Alliance of Concerned Teachers, Caraga, ang biktima ng paglabag sa karapatang pantao. Sinampahan ng gawa-gawang kaso at inaresto ng PNP noong March 17, 2021. Sa ngayon, pansamantalang nakalaya si Teacher Rosanilla Lai Conzad dahil sa bail, ngunit patuloy pa rin ang red tagging sa kanya at kawalan ng due process. Si Teacher Lai ay matagal ng guro sa pampublikong paaralan at kasalukuyang assistant principal ng San Vicente National High School sa Butuan City at Union Secretary ng ACT Region 13 o ng Caraga. Sinampahan siya ng gawa-gawang kasong attempted homicide ng isang sundalo o CAFGU member daw. Ngunit mula pa noong 2018, si Teacher Lai ay biktima na ng red tagging, harassment, at surveillance ng mga militar at ng pulis. Nanahanap ng panahon si Teacher Lai para gawin ang mga paratang laban sa kanya. Lalo po siya ay isang assistant principal at napakaraming inaatupag na gawain tulad ng blended learning. Napakarami pong responsibilidad ng mga guro ngayong pandemya para lang maitawid ang edukasyon at makaabot sa kabataan ng mga modules at online learning. Nasaan po ang due process? Nasaan po ang presumption of innocence? Chok lang po ang hawak ni Teacher Lai at ang kanyang pagmamalasakit sa mga kapwa guro, estudyante at ang kampanya para sa karapatan at kagalingan ng mga guro, lalo na sa usapin ng sapat at nakabubuhay na sahod at magkaroon ng ligtas na balik eskwela. At idagdag pa dito, Madam Speaker, si Teacher Lai po ay merong inaalaga ang anak na bulag. Habang nakadetain si Teacher Lai, nakaranas na ito ng paglabag sa kanyang karapatang pantao. Hindi siya binigyan ng immediate access sa abogado or communication sa kanyang immediate family. Pagpresenta sa kanya sa isang press con o media firing line. Pag-publicize na kanyang mugshot at mga press releases at social media posts na binabanggit siya isang wanted public school assistant principal who is communist and member of the underground group Katipunan ng mga Gurong Makabayan o Kaguma. Ang mga ginawang ito ng PNP ay isang forma ng mental o psychological torture. Madam Speaker, ayon po sa Republic Act 9745 sa Section 4, Paragraph B, mental psychological torture refers to act committed by a person in authority or agent of a person in authority which are calculated to be affected or confuse the mind and or undermine the person's dignity and moral, such as this. Number 5, preparing a prisoner for a show trial, public display, or public humiliation of a detainee or prisoner. Number 7, maltreating a member's or a person's family dahil kung saan-saan po sila pinapunta at hindi binigyan informasyon at dokumento at dapa. shame infliction, deliberately prohibiting the victim to communicate with any member of her family. Madam Speaker, meron pong 2008 PNP Circular at 2018 PNP Human Rights Affairs Advisory tungkol sa prohibition of media presentation of suspects na mismong PNP ang lumalabag sa kanilang polisiya at patakaran. Kahit sa Magna Carta of Public School Teachers, hindi ito pinapayagan ang publicity kung may kaso ang isang guro. Ang ginagawang ito ng mga state forces tulad ng red tagging, profiling, pagbisita at interogasyon sa mga paaralan, pati na sa bahay ng mga guro at pagsasagawa ng mga forum laban sa mga lehitimong unyon tulad ng Act Region 13 ay isang forma ng pananabutahe at pangingialam sa unyon ng mga guro o union busting. Halos kasisimula pa lamang ng unyon ng pag-uunyon ang mga guro lalo na mga guro sa gobyerno, lalo na ang pampublikang guro, ngunit gusto na itong lusawin ng estado. Ganito po ang trato sa mga guro, lalo na yung mga walang takot tulad ni Teacher Lai. Patuloy ang panggigipit at pananakot sa mga guro, lalo na sa mga patuloy na nanindigan para sa socio-ekonomikong mga kapakanan at karapatan. Hindi na nga po tinutupad ang pangakong salary increase para sa mga guro, ngunit patuloy pa rin ang administrasyon sa pag-target sa malaking organisasyon ng mga guro tulad ng Alliance of Concerned Teachers at ang mga unyon nito. Nananawagan po ang kinatawang ito na dapat ibasura na ang gawa-gawang kaso kay Teacher Lai at panagutin ang mga perpetrators na lumabag sa kanyang karapatang pantao. Dapat panagutin ng administrasyon ang liderato ng PNP at PNP PRO 13 dahil sa malinaw na paglabag sa batas. Ang psychological torture na kanilang ginagawa at direktang paglabag sa kanilang polisiya, regulasyon at human rights advisory. Ang ginagawang pandarahas ng Administrasyong Duterte laban sa mga guro ay lalo lamang magpapalakas ng ingay at panawagan para kay Teacher Lai para sa sapat na dagdag na sahod, para sa karapatang mag-unyon at para sa ligtas na balik eskwela. Nakakapangamba na kayang gawin ng militar at PNP ang ganitong harassment at pananakot sa isang well-respected teacher at miyembro ng komunidad. Senyales lamang ito na kayang gawin ito kahit sa sino mang tao, lalo na sa mga mahihirap, walang boses at hindi kilalang personahe. Kahapon nga lang po, March 21, hinuli rin si Renalyn Tejero. Siya po ay isang human rights worker at isa mga paralegals na tumutulong kay Teacher Lai. Sinampahan din po siya ng gawa-gawang kaso. Ginawa rin sa kanya ang parehong public shaming at psychological torture tulad ng ginawa kay Teacher Lai. Dagdag na naman ito sa mga pag-atake laban sa mga human rights defenders. Bilang kinatawa ng mga guro, Madam Speaker, asahan niyo po na patuloy kaming lalaban para sa karapatan at kagalingan ng mga guro at buong sektor ng edukasyon, kahit pasunod-sunod ang pasismo ng Estado. Ito ang aming panawagan, junk from charges against Teacher Lai and Renalyn. Unionism is not terrorism. Hands off our teachers. Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the privileged speech of Honorable Franz Castro be referred to the Committee on Rules. So move, Madam Speaker.
Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, I move that Representative Angelina Helen Tan of the 4th District of Quezon be recognized to avail of the privilege hour. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Angelina Tan is recognized.
Maraming salamat po, Madam Speaker. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Today, I stand before this House of the People to call attention to the urgent need to end tuberculosis, the ancient captain of all these men of death, even as we grapple to survive amid the flurry of loss and devastation brought about by the present pandemic that is COVID-19. Madam Speaker, ladies and gentlemen of this august chamber, mga kababayan, I have entitled this speech Tuberculosis in the Time of COVID-19, Why the Ancient is More Potent Than the Present Pandemic. The title partly from Gabriel Garcia's novel, Love in the Time of Cholera, and the speech to discuss why is it critical for the government to address TB eradication alongside efforts to stop COVID-19, why political will is necessary to sustain the vision of a world free of tuberculosis. Every year, we commemorate TB Day not only to remember Robert Koch's announcement of his discovery of Mycobacterium tuberculosis on March 24, 1882, but to raise public awareness about the devastating health, social, and economic consequences of TB, and more importantly, to step up efforts to end the global tuberculosis epidemic. Amid the onslaught of COVID-19, I hope we lose sight of the fact that tuberculosis remains to be the world's most deadly infectious disease that kills more than 1 million lives each year and affects millions more. While many of us are aware of the number of COVID cases, both globally and domestically, very few realize the staggering fact that in 2000, over 30 million people have died of tuberculosis across continents and countries of the world. In fact, it is estimated that over the last 200 years, more than 1 billion people have died from tuberculosis, far more from any other infectious disease. According to the World Health Organization's Global TB Report 2020, TB is one of the top 10 causes of death worldwide, the leading cause of death from a single infection agent. This places TB in the rank above HIV. In 2019, an estimated 10 million people fell ill with, while 1 million have died. 208,000 of which are HIV positive people. Most TB cases were in the WHO region of Southeast Asia, which accounts for 44%, Africa 25%, and the West 18%. 8 countries accounted for 2/3 of the global total: India 20%, Indonesia 8.5%, China 2.4%, Philippines 6%, Pakistan 5.7%, Nigeria 4.4%, Bangladesh 3.6%, South Africa 2.6%, with a global of total of 2. In the Philippines, 1% population, 1 million Filipinos have active tuberculosis. That's the bad news. But what is worse is that many of these Filipinos do not even know that they have tuberculosis. Out of this 1 million, more or less 6,000 Filipinos die from TB annually, which means that about 70 plus Filipinos die each day. What is anomalous about this is the fact that tuberculosis is highly curable disease and treatment assistance is available and accessible. And while saving vaccines are already developed and available for COVID-19 in just less than a year, there is only one licensed vaccine for tuberculosis, the Bacillus vaccine, that is 140 years after Mycobacterium tuberculosis was discovered, and 100 years in July here after a French infant whose mother had died from the disease became the first person to receive an experimental vaccine against tuberculosis. That BCG which was developed 100 years ago is the same BCG which is still used today against tuberculosis. The sad thing is that it has been observed if BCG was developed today, it would probably never be used because the use of a vaccine for which nothing or little is known about how it works will not pass the current complex regulatory framework for vaccine development and licensing. The treatment coverage rate of the Philippines for tuberculosis was only 68% in 2019 and 5% case fatality rate, and where 35% TB patients face catastrophic total costs. The Philippines had a very low score of 30 out of 100 for tuberculosis in 2016, Healthcare Access and Quality Index for 195 countries and territories and selected national locations. The country has made a strong commitment to a vision of a TB-free world, where we have pledged during the UN high-level meeting on TB to treat over 2 million Filipinos with TB until 2022. Because of this, the Philippines has activated the High-Level National Coordination Committee by virtue of Republic Act number 107 or 10767, otherwise known as the Comprehensive Tuberculosis Elimination Plan Act, which was authored by this representation and is now recognized to be one of the most comprehensive TB legislations in the world today. We are in the scaling up of X-ray screening and rapid molecular testing with 6 to 9% screening or screening target and 2 to 3% of the Filipino population every year until 2020 will be tested. We are also in the process of calibrating the landmark TB law by introducing important amendments early on in response to the country's commitment to the UN high-level meeting on TB, and I thank every members of this chamber for supporting this measure that is now pending in the Senate. The COVID-19, however, is now looming to become an enormous hurdle to TB elimination efforts. Because of the pandemic, the government is hard-pressed to ensure the continuity of essential health services, such as those of TB services. There are growing concerns regarding the displacement of critical health programs of the government, particularly TB elimination program. This is quite unsettling in the face of previous estimates that up to 6.3 million more people will develop TB between now and 2025, and 1.4 million more people are expected to die as cases go undiagnosed and untreated because of community quarantine and lockdowns. Just a few days ago, Madam Speaker, a new data from the Stop TB Partnership showed that COVID-19 related lockdowns have significantly set back the global effort to end TB by a massive 12 years. According to Dr. Luchika Dit, figures from every single one of 23 high-burden countries for 2020 were collated, and there was a dramatic drop in people diagnosed and treated for tuberculosis. The Philippines is one of the 23 high-burden TB countries in the world. This situation is a war, and we cannot afford to lose on both fronts, where so many people all over the globe are dying. As community quarantines continue to disrupt health programs like TB elimination efforts, those who are TB infected will continue to spread the infection. This may eventually lead to treatment failure and the emergence of drug resistance, which should be a cause for grave concern. In the face of challenges, we need to maintain quality and internet TB care respond to the pandemic. But that is easier said than done, as our financial resources are slowly depleted by the mass for funds in controlling the spread of COVID-19. Our health, even before the current crisis, is already overstressed and underfunded. I cannot imagine how it is. But we are not, as Madam Speaker, my esteemed. In 2017, members of the chamber together towards a consensus to end TB in our lifetime by establishing the Philippine TB Caucus under the umbrella of the Asia Pacific TB Caucus, which is currently chaired by this representation, and under the leadership of Global TB, where this representation is a member of its executive. The Philippine Caucus had brought together various agencies of the government, the private sector, civil society organizations, and TB advocates who have been working to intensify the national campaign against tuberculosis. The launching of the Philippine Caucus several years took the number of parliamentarians who have endorsed the Barcelona Declaration to more than 2,000 at that time, making the Global TB Caucus one of the largest parliamentary networks in the world. The Global TB Caucus has been in the forefront of the fight against TB at the parliamentary. Today, it has representation in over 150 countries, as well as 34 out of 48 countries in the World Health Organization list of high burden, burden, or TB HIV burden countries, and in 18 G20 countries. Madam Speaker, at this point of collective effort to end tuberculosis, everyone in the House must realize that this fight is going to be a political one. Ending TB is a fight that will have to be waged across political divides between party lines and amongst actors, particularly those on parliament who serve as powerful agents of change. As legislators, we can shape policies that will have in the prevention, detection, and control of tuberculosis. I call on everyone today to keep on crafting policies, perhaps in the form of a much larger context of poverty, or poverty eradication, or social amelioration programs, or maybe in the form of specific legislative initiatives, such as introducing particular line for TB and annual budget. We should help sustain TB elimination efforts by engaging health authorities and others who are tasked to implement TB programs in the same manner, but we should work hand in hand with civil society organizations. We must hold people accountable and utilize our oversight to ensure the full implementation of TB. We cannot leave elimination efforts to the executive branch. We need to be business as usual when it comes to eradicating tuberculosis. As budgetary gatekeepers, we must ensure that TB programs are continuously and adequately funded. Adequate funding is a fundamental problem in our fight with TB, considering that our TB budget is not making a headway even with the enactment of Public Act 10767. The National Programs budget for 2021 is only over 932 million pesos, which is far less than what is actually needed to effectively fight tuberculosis. Proposal during 2016 was 1.3 billion pesos or 27 million. The final challenge is not only to continuously stigmatize, but to destigmatize other infectious diseases as well. We all know symptoms and that of COVID-19 are quite similar in as much as both infectious diseases that attack primarily the lungs. A tuberculosis patient already stigmatized for having symptoms such as fever, cough, and difficulty of breathing will not only create diagnostic confusion, but can influence further stigma, as they may also be viewed as having COVID-19 infection. This double stigmatization to be a tall barrier that could hinder more people from seeking immediate medical attention the moment they with such symptoms. We need to do something about this. Ultimately, sustaining political will to end, sustaining the momentum gained from the historic UN high-level on TB intensely critical if we are to target. The road to end tuberculosis is certainly with roadblocks that is now even made more difficult because of the, which is why TB elimination efforts need a breakthrough. Now more than we need to intensify our efforts, walk the extra mile, and persevere even more to continue this fight. The clock is ticking, but we still have time to end tuberculosis. We still have a chance to make it happen. Maraming salamat po and magandang hapon po muli.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the privileged speech of the Honorable Helen Tan be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that recognize Representative Sara Jane Ilago of Party List Kabataan for her privileged speech. So move, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Sarah Jane Eligo is recognized. You may proceed, Honorable Sarah Jane Eligo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. With the current surge in cases, with today's highest daily tally yet of 8,019 cases, and the announcement of the Department of Health that the new variants of COVID-19 are now in all areas of the National Capital Region, the prospects of controlling and preventing the spread of COVID-19 remain dim. This would have far greater impact in our lives in the future, especially among children and youth who are also suffering from a major learning crisis, and their parents, families, and guardians who suffer from the multiple burden of homeschooling their children, additional expenses, and insecure economic situation due to loss of jobs and livelihood that also trigger tensions and abuse at home. The National Union of Students of the Philippines conducted a student consultation from schools all over the country to assess the distance learning which started from August to October 2020. DepEd and CHED implemented distance mode of learning which comprised of online classes and modular classes. In Bulacan State University, students are asked to choose the type of learning approach. First is the synchronous learning for those with good internet connection and gadgets. Second is the remote print learning if there is no internet and for those who want a self-paced study. And third option is the asynchronous online learning for those who have a gadget but do not have a strong internet connection and want to self-study. This mechanism of selecting students for enrollment is also practiced in other universities. In the Cordillera region, other alternative methods such as through text have been attempted in barangay and local government units for the students to pick up their student requirements, just like what they did in Benguet State University wherein there is a mobile enrollment or caravan, which is also conducted by the Ifugao State University, Abra State Institute of Science and Technology, Kalinga State University, and Mountain Province State Polytechnic College, where the school's enrollment teams physically went to their communities for the remote conduct of enrollment. In the same region, even in basic education, re-enrollment online is made automatic, and you have to remove yourself from the automatic list if you do not want to continue. It seems all right for DepEd to quote-unquote simplify the process, but on one hand, it can also be prone to cover up a possible drop in enrollment statistics. 6 months have passed since the implementation of distance learning, but still the same woes are experienced by the students and teachers in terms of the lack of gadgets and poor internet connection, lack and delayed modules, the delivery of modules, the implementation of guidelines without prior consultation of primary stakeholders in schools. Students and teachers experience mental and overall health deterioration due to the lack of inclusive distance learning opportunities, heavy academic workload on top of the distressing online classes. There were also reports of delayed distribution of modules and even deteriorating quality or content of the modules. There are posts circulating online on the contents of modules distributed with a sexist remark and alarming discriminatory and derogatory labeling organizations, which are an unfortunate reflection of how distance learning can be also misused for propaganda and the spread of false information. A survey made by the Movement for Safe, Equitable, Quality, and Relevant Education with 1,395 teachers, 1,207 parents, and 620 grade 4 to grade 12 students as responded, gave a snippet of the distance learning experience among various stakeholders in the last school year. 70.9% of teacher respondents are not confident that the competencies set by the Department of Education under distance learning is actually being developed. Among teacher respondents, 4% of teachers said that all students were able to keep up with the lessons. 54% identified that a definite portion of their class was lagging behind, and that 42% testified that an indefinite segment of the class could not keep up, suggesting dwindling student participation. Meanwhile, 53% of the student respondents were not sure if they could learn the competencies set by DepEd for their grade level under distance learning, and only 7 in 10 students were confident that they could complete the school year. There was also a fluctuation in online class attendance, and about 87% of students raised unstable internet connection as their main problem. And in 4 in every 10 student respondents have found errors in the modules that they were using. On the part of the parents and guardians, 56% of them reported that distance learning had costed them about 900 pesos and below in the past month alone, while 44% expended more than 900 pesos, and 2/3 of teachers said that the DepEd failed to adequately provide the needs of distance learning. On the matter of tuition and other school fee increases and the collection of unused fees in schools, last year, Madam Speaker, in the midst of the pandemic and socioeconomic crisis, DepEd approved 654 out of 901 tuition hike applications in June 2020. Meanwhile, TED received 89 TOEFI or tuition and other fee increase applications, but no data were presented thus far on how many schools were approved by the Commission. For the upcoming academic year, instead of encouraging schools to defer tuition increases and cut fees this coming year, TED has issued the interim guidelines as to the timeline on the processing of applications to increase in tuition and other school fees for the academic year 2021 to 2022. St. Louis University in Baguio had a 7% tuition increase for freshies, law and medical students, on top of the additional 1,000 pesos to 1,500 fee for printed learning modules distributed to students. Holy Angel University and Lyceum of the Philippines are also in the process of tuition hike application, and De La Salle University is in the process as well of 2.5% tuition increase for the next academic year. Others remained unchanged with regard to the price of their school fees, while others have increased their fees due to distance learning. Other school fees continue to be charged despite the implementation of distance learning and unused school facilities. Wala pong mga naging adjustments sa mga sinisingil, katulad ng belated learning experience fee, ng OJT fee, ng cultural fee, gym fee, ng energy fee, dental fee, at laboratory fees. Hindi rin po nagkaroon ng lahat ng panig na konsultasyon na kung paano ba magtutulungan ang lahat ng stakeholders, ang learners, ang mga estudyante, gayon din ang faculty, ang education support personnel para magtulak pa ng institutional subsidy na para sa mga eskwelahan na ito na napakalaki din naman talaga ng naging epekto ng pandemya sa kanilang mga operations. So kaya naman, kailangan dito ang intervention ng gobyerno para sa pagbibigay pa rin ng education emergency relief package para sa mga apektadong stakeholders at gayon din sa mga institusyon na nangangailangan ng subsidiya. While we continue to demand for comprehensive, effective, and humane response to the COVID-19 crisis, these are the youth's call to promote a right to education, provide equal opportunities for students to continue education, and ensure the safe resumption of physical classes. We cannot have a one-size-fits-all measure for this. Most frustratingly, due to the failure to control and prevent the spread of COVID-19, these demands are almost the same as our calls in the first months of the lockdown last year. Pareho pa rin po ang mga kailangan na diinan. We must fulfill the requisites for the safe and gradual reopening of classes, lalo na po dun sa mga areas na walang kaso ng COVID-19, prioritize free and safe mass vaccination to teachers and education support personnel, implement regular and free mass testing, ensure the implementation of minimum health requirements in schools and universities, conduct prior risk assessments in areas where there's limited face-to-face classes, employment of health and sanitation personnel in schools, provide enough funds for additional classrooms, sanitation rooms, canteens, and other necessary school facilities. Second, a demand is for inclusive learning, to provide the needs for distance learning or alternative mode of education, such as free gadgets and stable internet connectivity to students and teachers, especially in higher risk areas. Emphasize the quality learning that students receive rather than the imposition of heavy academic requirements and grading systems. Promote and implement academic easing in all universities and colleges. Third is the promotion of accessible education to ensure the implementation of the universal access to quality tertiary education law in our public tertiary schools, to junk tuition and other fee hikes and stop the collection of unused school fees in distance learning, widen the efforts for financial support to students, teachers, and staff in education, ensure accessible dormitories, transportation, and other basic services for students and employees, especially towards the resumption of physical test. Fourth is the provision of assistance to personnel and school employees. For them to employ more teaching and non-teaching personnel, provide wage subsidy for private school teachers and staff, and subsidy for small private schools to continue their academic operations and meet minimum health requirements. And finally, to uphold democratic rights and welfare of all education stakeholders. This is to ensure genuine representation of students, parents, teaching and non-teaching personnel in committee meetings and planning with regard to the continuing education amid the pandemic. Their needs for physical, mental, and emotional health and well-being must also be supported. This is why, Madam Speaker, we reiterate our call for medical solutions and scientific approach in the pandemic response. We demand transparency, justice, and accountability in the fight for the right to education and the protection of human rights at all times. Nananawagan kami na pakinggan ang mga panawagan ng mga estudyante at kabataan at tiyakin na may boses sila sa pagdating sa kalagayan ngayon na tayo ay humaharap sa patong-patong na krisis sa kalusugan, sa edukasyon. Maraming salamat, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the privileged speech of Honorable Sara Ilago be referred to the Committee on Rules.
Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the Honorable Deputy Speaker Bienvenido M. Abante Jr. be recognized for his privileged speech.
The Honorable Bienvenido Abante is recognized.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, Majority Leader. Ngayon pong araw na ito, binabati ko muna kayo ng magandang hapon po sa lahat. Ang akin pong privilege speech ay binigyan ko ng pamagat na Our Brother's Keeper. Palagay ko, nandiyan po yung picture ng pastor na aking tutukuyin po ngayong hapon. This is the second time this month I have requested the use of this privilege. A privilege afforded to all the members of this community. A privilege we used to speak on behalf of our constituents, on behalf of our kababayan who are voiceless and defenseless, on behalf of those who need champions and advocates who will fight for them. Madam Speaker, Reverend Joscoro Tan Jr. is one of them. He needs someone to speak on his behalf because he cannot speak. And he required someone to fight for him because he demands justice. Ordinarily, Madam Speaker, Pastor Jet could speak for himself, could very well articulate the importance of the rule of law, and could tell us why, as leaders, we are responsible for our flock. He would tell those of us privileged to stand and speak at this venue why we are our brother's keeper. And as such, we are tasked to do everything within our power to look after the interests of our countrymen. Pastor Jet could do all this, Madam Speaker, my colleagues, but he cannot. He cannot because in the early morning of Wednesday in Barangay Labang Baybay, Tagapulan, Samar, while jogging with his wife, Pastor Jet was mercilessly gunned down in front of his wife. Pastor Jet was 55 years old. According to the police report that documents this crime, and I quote, "The victim, while jogging together with his wife, and upon reaching at the descending and grassy portion of the barangay road, was shot by the suspect with the use of undetermined caliber of firearm, whereby hitting on the different parts of his body that resulted in his instantaneous death, while said suspect got away right after the incident." End of quote. Napakasakit po basahin ito, Madam Speaker. Napakasakit basahin na may isang pastor na pinatay sa harap ng kanyang mahal sa buhay. Isang pastor na wala lang pong ibang gagawin kundi magpahayag ng kapayapaan sa lahat. If those of us over 600 kilometers away from the scene of the crime were shocked to hear this news, one cannot imagine the shock and pain and anguish felt by Pastor Jet's wife as she saw bullets tear through her husband's less than 6 feet away from her, as she saw her husband murdered in front of her. Napakasakit din po basahin ang huling linya nitong police report, Madam Speaker. And I quote, "Said suspect got away right after the incident. End of quote. What makes this incident more painful and tragic, Madam Speaker, my dear colleagues, is that the murder of Pastor Jet is not an isolated incident. Again, may I say it again, not an isolated incident. Just over a week before he was slain, Calbayog City Mayor Ronaldo Aquino was ambushed and killed. Just a month before the death of Pastor Jet, Mia Mascareñas Green, a lawyer for the NGO Environmental Legal Assistance Center, or ILAC, was ambushed while driving her three young children in Tagbilaran City, Bohol. And earlier this month, 9 activists were killed in what is now referred to as Bloody Sunday. My goodness. Elected officials, members of the bar, community organizers, men of the cloth. The circumstances surrounding their deaths may differ, Madam Speaker, but they all shared a similar fate. Their lives were cut short in a hail of bullets. Kaya ito po ang tanong ko sa ating lahat ngayon dito. Ganito na ba kamura ang buhay sa ating bayan? Is this how cheap life is in our country? Ulitin ko po ang huling linya ng police report. And again I quote, said suspect got away right after the incident. End of quote. Is this what we have come to expect when our kababayan are brutally murdered in our streets? In Genesis 4:9 of the Bible, the Lord said unto Cain, and I quote, "Where is Abel thy brother?" And he said, "I know not. Am I my brother's keeper?" End of quote. That is the same question we must ask ourselves, Madam Speaker. In the face of the brutality and mayhem and murder experienced by our countrymen, whether we share their beliefs or disagree with them, these are our constituents being gunned down in our districts, in our country. These are crimes being committed in our midst, many of which remain unsolved. And we are even called the only Christian country in the Far East. These are crimes being committed by murderers and killers who do not value life, have zero disregard for the law, and have no fear of God nor man. It certainly appears that they do not fear our men in uniform or our law enforcement agencies, as these killings continue unabated, so much so that we have become desensitized to these crimes of the highest order. Madam Speaker, I come in here today on behalf of Pastor Jet and all those whose lives have been violently cut short, to demand justice and to urge our law enforcement officials to take action. Those responsible must be held accountable for their crimes. Madam Speaker, because if these killers remain free and unpunished, more and more criminals will be emboldened to follow in their bloody footsteps. At some point, my dear colleagues, we must say enough is enough. We must stand up and say that the bloodshed must end. Abogado, alkalde, aktivista, pulis, pastor, Maghihintay ba ba tayo na masama ang congressman sa listahan na ito? Maghihintay ba ba tayo na mabiktima ang kaibigan, kamag-anak o katrabaho? We are, Madam Speaker, our brothers and sisters keepers. We must continue to speak for those violently silenced by death. And we must continue to demand justice for all of them. They deserve no less. Maraming salamat po, Madam Speaker.
Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that the privileged speech of the Honorable Deputy Speaker Bienvenido Abante be referred to the Committee on Rules for appropriate action. So move, Madam Speaker.
Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that to transmit to the Senate all the bills approved on third reading today. So move, Madam Speaker.
Are there any objections? Hearing none, the motion is approved.
Madam Speaker, we are in receipt of a message from the Senate informing that the Senate passed with amendments House Bill number 7700 entitled An Act Reapportioning the First Legislative District of the City of Caloocan into 2 legislative districts. Madam Speaker, we have been advised that the Committee on Local Government, sponsor of the said House Bill as well as the author thereof, has no objections to the amendments introduced by the Senate. In accordance with the rules, I move that we concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 7700. So move, Madam Speaker.
There is a motion to the Senate to concur with the Senate amendments to House Bill number 7700. Are there any objections? The chair hears none. The motion is approved. Majority Leader.
Madam Speaker, I move that we suspend session until 9 a.m. of March 25, Thursday.
Session is suspended until March 25, Thursday at 9 a.m.